What's up, gang? How's it going? Let me know if my audio is good. I think I adjusted some things to make it better and make it sound better, but let me know in chat. I'm really happy to see all of you guys. This is going to be a little bit different than a lot of the other stuff I do. It's going to be definitely an emotional roller coaster. I told myself I probably wouldn't cry at some portions of it, but I know that's a lie. I definitely get very choked up about certain things that have happened in my life that led me to Christ, and so it's gonna be raw. It's gonna be real. I don't know why, but I went to the image of who's that conservative commentator who was like, we'll do it live, and he's like smashing the stuff. Hey, he said something a little else before that, but we're not cursing. That's not it. But he got mad. He's like, we'll do it live. Um, it's not exactly like that, but I want to be real. Because Bill O'Reilly, thank you, righteous God, I appreciate it, man. Bill O'Reilly, yeah. But this is real. This is the story of my life. This is how I came to accept Christ in my heart. This is how I came to know and love Jesus and walk with him. And there are super super happy parts of this story. There are really sad parts. And I think nothing's better than just getting into it. So, I'm Pine Sap. You guys know me, and I was born in a city called Littleton. And for those who live in Colorado, Littleton is kind of like a nicer suburban area. It's not too far away from Denver. It's a couple miles out, right? But I mean, it feels connected to Denver essentially. It doesn't feel like really a different city, but it is. And a lot of really beautiful suburbs there. My mom grew up there, and my grandparents lived there and stuff like that. And I essentially it was like a second home to me growing up. My cousins live there, and my cousins are my world. My cousin, I don't want to say his name, not to name docs, but he's the brother I've never had. I never had a brother growing up. I did have a sister who I'm blessed to have. She is literally the light of my life. I don't know what I would do without her. She's my best friend. I've always said that, and I'm so proud of her. She is a really virtuous woman. It's been crazy to just see her grow up and stuff like that. So I love her and appreciate her, and I love and appreciate my cousin and my other cousin, who's a girl. She's amazing too. She's just so full of life and love, and just loves everyone around her. Always knows how to make me laugh and stuff like that. So I come from a great family. So Littleton was where I was born, yeah, and it's a beautiful spot. There's a lot of houses around that were like built in the 60s, 70s, 80s. A lot of kind of traditional American architecture. You know what I mean? Traditional kind of like cookie cutter fence architecture and stuff like that. But the houses there are gorgeous. It's being built up a lot more than it used to be, and I kind of want it to be how it used to be more. But it's a beautiful part of Colorado. So I lived there till I was 3, and then I moved away, and I moved more into a sort of region, like in the foothills of Colorado, right, where you're not quite in the mountains yet, but you are like right kind of where you start to get in the mountains, right? So there's a lot of more like hilly terrain. There's a ton of like you can be in the mountains in like 5 seconds, basically, if you really want to. So much of that land is right near like Rocky Mountain National Forest and stuff like that. And so it's a lot of unbridled wilderness. And that's kind of like where I was like formed. Like I grew up going on hikes. I grew up, playing outside, playing pretend games, out of my backyard and stuff like that. It always had to involve war somehow. I was a big war guy, not because I was violent, just I loved kind of like conflict. I loved like the idea of just like being being a man and conflict and stuff like that. So, I used to like reenact like Star Wars, or Star Wars was a huge one for me. Any of the video games I was playing, I would always make up these like scenarios in my head. And my friends would come over and stuff like that, and they would, we'd play those games. I remember one, I think it was my 8th grade birthday, and this is where I actually got my turtle Patchy from, who's still with us to this day. Or did I say 8th grade birthday? I didn't mean 8th grade. I meant 8 years old. 8 years old, not 8th grade. Goodness gracious, man. 8 years old, my 8-year-old birthday, or my 8th birthday. I had this great birthday party where we had like Nerf swords, and we were just like slapping the crap out of like each other's like arms and stuff like that with these like Nerf swords. And we were going around and just like, having a good old time and stuff like that. I must have had like 20 people at my house for that. And it was one of the best birthday parties I ever had. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, essentially being outside was a huge part of like me growing up. I was outside a lot. I loved the woods. I loved the forest. I loved just being able to be in sort of the quiet of it all. And that played a huge impact on me. I mean, to this day, I still love going outside, but it's more than that. It's like I love being out in my woods, like my woods, where it's like I get to just sit and be quiet, and I get to listen to God's voice. And that was kind of, my upbringing. I lived that way for, up until high school and stuff like that. And really that was like my formation. And so I had this beautiful like spot where I lived in for most of my life. And, there was also this just community I got to be a part of growing up. I mean, every year my neighborhood would have a fantastic 4th of July party where we got the whole neighborhood together. There were, fireworks later. There were, people handing out popsicles, especially bomb pops. Did anyone else remember bomb pops, bro? Like I must not be the only guy who remembers how good those were. Bomb pops. I had fudgesicles. Your family would come over for the barbecue and like bring over some delicious food. Like my grandma would always make just whatever it was. It could have been some dessert, could have been like baked beans, could have been something like that. And then my dad would grow up, or not grow up, grill up like a lot of buffalo. Like my family, rather than eating beef growing up, we ate buffalo. And the reason why is because my mom, when she was 16, she read the book The Jungle by I think it's Upton Sinclair who wrote that. And she was like so grossed out by the idea of like eating beef because of like the conditions those factories were in, that she for the rest of her life she's like, I don't want to eat beef and stuff like that. Which thankfully the alternative of that is buffalo has more omega 3s than fish, and it's a super lean meat, and it tastes great, and it's like super juicy, just probably some of the best meat you can use to make like burgers or steak or whatever you like to eat. Like if you're a huge carnivore dude, like honestly eating some bison, eating some buffalo is like where it's at. It is like prime cut of meat. And so, my dad would like grill up some of that, grill up some chicken, and we would just like sit out and watch the stars, watch the fireworks go off. And between that, it was like I got a very patriotic upbringing. My community that I grew up in was very conservative, kind of more like evangelical conservative, I would say. And I would go to elementary school, and I would just like be enamored with how much fun we had. Like I mean, I know some people like to dog on those nostalgia videos like POV, it's 2005 and you just had like a snow day and stuff like that. Um and you know I really am a sucker for those videos. I'm a sucker for those videos because they're just so good. It's like, playing on the scooters. Like anyone remember during gym class, like you'd have like either the big rainbow parachute that like, you'd throw it up and all the kids would go under, and it was like super cool, and you'd like sit on it, and it was you'd sit on like the edges of it, and it almost like make like a tent around you and like your whole class. Or like like I said, the scooters, right? We'd roll around on the scooters and we would, like, I don't know, like play tag or something like that, or play like fun like games with like the little foam balls that we had where we would like, throw it in each other's goal or whatever. Yeah, great stuff like that. I grew up doing that, and we'd always have every single year like these like outdoor days. Spend the whole day just doing fun activities, races, tug of war. There were popsicles. The fire truck would come and like just spray water in the air, and so there were like kids like just running to get a huge like whoosh of water and stuff like that, and it was magical. Like it was just so magical. I would not sell that time for the world. Um, I would go to my friend Tyler's house and we would play on his GameCube and stuff like that. We would play the OG Lego Star Wars. I still remember that's the first video game I remember when that came out. I saw the commercials for it. I saw the original trilogy Lego Star Wars released for Xbox original, Xbox 360, GameCube, Wii, whatever it was. And I went over to my friend Hunter and my friend Tyler's house two separate times. I played it on my friend Tyler's GameCube, and then I played it on my friend Hunter's uh, uh, Xbox. Yeah, yeah, his OG Xbox. And I mean, my friend Hunter, he used to put on these amazing Halloween parties growing up. I mean, literally some of the most fun I have ever had and still have ever had. Where we would go over, and basically the whole night was we would always like start off the night kind of like outside. It wasn't quite dusk yet. It was still kind of afternoon. So we'd always like play some fun game. It generally was like tag. We'd play like tag or like capture the flag. And we'd just be in his front yard and he had his play set and stuff like that. So you could like hide up in there. You could do some like maneuvers and stuff like that. You could, see about juking people out and stuff like that. I was a pretty fast kid, honestly. And, we'd play for a little bit, and then once dusk hit, we would then start going trick or treating, and we would we'd go all around the neighborhood. But I'm gonna be honest, when I was a kid, I was a bit of scaredy cat. I didn't like the super scary like witch like animatronic like witches or whatever, or like monsters or whatever that were on people's porches. But when I realized like, okay, those houses have the like largest candy bars, I would just ask like my dad. I'd be like, Dad, can you like walk up with me and like, can we just like get some candy and stuff like that? He's like, sure, buddy. He's like, we'll go get some candy. So, my dad would walk up with me and my sister and we get some candy. And it was always these like, Hershey's bars or like a whole thing of Reese's and stuff like that. And after that, we would go back to Hunter's house and we would play we would play just any game on like his old Xbox, right? He would like have so many good games like oh man, what's the game called? Not Call of Duty, it was something Honor. Medal of Honor. We'd play Medal of Honor. And so we would play Medal of Honor, and it was a great game because you could do four-person co-op on the OG Xbox. And so like all me and my best friends, we would just be like sitting playing for Medal of Honor on his projection screen because his dad had like a theater set up in the basement. We would play Medal of Honor on his projection screen for like hours on end, sometimes well into the night, and just like have so much fun. And I used to I would go over, and his dad had probably every OG Dungeons and Dragons book you could imagine, and I was just enamored with them, dude. Like he had these cool books where like the art was just dark fantasy, like gorgeous, just monsters and magic and all that kind of stuff. And my he told me once, I remember I was like 8 or something reading this. He's like, "Hey, he's like, one day you can probably play that game, buddy." He's like, "It might be a little slow for you right now, but like, one day you'll play it and stuff like that." I was like, "Sick." So, like those are some really good memories I have, and really that was like my formation as a kid in elementary school was just I'd go to sleepovers again at like my friend Tyler's house. I would go play a ton of flag football, actually, especially towards the end of elementary school. In fact, for our team, I got so good at kicking that I was the kicker for a while. And so I would just like launch these rockets, bro, like half across the field. It would like fall close to their end zone, and we just pummel them, man. And it was so much fun. So, I really sort of grew up in a very innocent environment. My mom and my dad had done a good job to really sort of raise my me and my sister in this sort of environment where we were kind of exposed to the best things. We didn't really watch like really any bad TV shows or anything like that. I grew up watching a ton of SpongeBob, can quote it by heart and stuff like that. SpongeBob was like my main show, honestly, growing up, and then Danny Phantom and like all the Nickelodeon shows and stuff like that. And uh there was something so profound about that. There was something so profound of just like growing up in this environment where it was like unbridled childhood. Like cuz we didn't really deal with like many kind of heavy things. You know what I mean? I mean, my great grandpa passed away when I was probably like 9, right? And that was kind of probably one of the most heavy things that I really had to deal with. And my great grandma, married to my great grandpa, passed away a little longer after that. But I guess like as hard as it was kind of like one of those things where I always had this concept of like they're not gone, I'll see them later. You know what I mean? Like they're not really gone. I'll see them later and stuff like that. And so there was almost like there was a bit of sorrow, but there was a bit of peace in knowing that I would see them later and stuff like that. And my grandma, my great grandma, I just call her my grandma because I call my actual grandma a little bit of a different name. But my great grandma, I just have some funny memories about her because she always owned corgis and stuff like that, and I would like play in the backyard with like her corgi dogs and just like run around with them while she would like kind of like smoke on the back patio and stuff like that. And yeah, whenever she smoked, she was like pine sap. She's like she's like sweetie, never smoke, okay? And I'm like, okay, grandma, I won't. So I've never smoked, which is good. She told me not to and stuff like that because she understood how addictive it could be. And it's sometimes hard to think about certain memories of both my great grandma and my great grandpa uh, on my grandpa's side. But like one of them was, my grandpa actually a couple days before he had died, because he was in really good health and he passed away very suddenly. Like we weren't expecting it at all. He gave me this model of a bomber. I think it was I can't remember, but it was the big World War II bomber. I want to say a B-12, B-10, one of those. And it was beautiful. It was just this, I still have it on my shelf today. This just beautiful uh model bomber and stuff like that. And because of his influence and, the ways that he had been in like the Air Force and stuff like that, I thought for the longest time that I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy in Colorado. It almost felt like that was kind of where I was going to go to college, right? Was this Air Force Academy, and I remember much later on down the road, I told my mom, I don't know if the Air Force Academy is what I want to do, but I was okay with it at the time because I loved my grandma or I love my grandpa so much. Um, so may the Lord guide you and your family to the graces of perseverance. This stream is awesome. Thank you, Unionist Initiative. I appreciate it, buddy. But so that was huge with my grandpa, and then with my grandma, it's such a kind of innocuous memory, and I have like a lot more of her. But like one of the memories I have of her is like she just like came over. She said to me, she's like, come over here, sweetie, and I was like, okay, grandma. And she took 2 pennies and she showed me that thing like if you rub the pennies together and stuff like that, like I can't remember, but it's like the staining or something like moves from one to the other, like comes off or something. It's been a while since I've done it, but like she showed me this trick, and it's such a small memory. Like most people would be like, why do you remember that of all things? But I'm like, it just meant a lot to me at the time. It really meant a lot to me to just have this like little special moment with my grandma, and it was beautiful. Like I remember smiling and I was like, grandma, that's so cool. And she's like, and then I think she kissed me on the head and she's like, I love you. And I miss her a lot. I miss her and my great grandpa a lot, but I really hope that they're in heaven. I can see them one day. So they were special to me. But between that, my other great grandparents who lived actually literally like a block over, believe it or not, we did a pretty good job of living in the same area. I would go over and I would always hang out on the porch because my other set of great grandparents were from the South, and so we would hang out on the porch and I would just tell them how school was going. I would just play around like kind of in the dirt out front and stuff like that. My grandpa and my mom would like talk with them and stuff like that. My dad too, if he was there, if he wasn't working. And like I would just play around, and my great grandpa would show me. My great grandpa, excuse me, sorry, I had some soup, so a little bit of burps there. My great grandpa was really really good at growing things. So like he would grow like yams, he would grow like squash, he would just grow like all these like crazy vegetables in the backyard. He was an impressive gardener, and he even had like a little like a koi pond in the back area, and I would go and like look at the fish and stuff like that. I'd just be like enamored with them. I'm like, that's so cool. Like I like those fish. Um and so yeah, I mean that really was like my kind of like family situation growing up was just like a lot of innocence, a lot of love, a lot of like family matters above all else. Like family is the most important thing to me. It still is, it always will be. And I really got that formation when I was young. My other great grandpa on my dad's side, he lived in Arizona for a while, and he was in a retirement home in Arizona until he moved to Colorado. And I still remember I was visiting my grandparents because they lived in Sedona, Arizona. And Sedona, if you guys know Sedona, it's actually a beautiful spot. In fact, before I forget, I'm gonna pull up a picture of the chapel there, because it's worth seeing. Um, and it's one of my earliest Catholic memories, so it has relevance to this story. Um, I remembered seeing him, and during the day we were in Jerome, Arizona. And if you guys know Jerome, Arizona, it's like an old mining town that's built on like the side of a hill. It's actually a really cool city, believe it or not. It's a very cool town, but it's like an old mining town built on the side of a mountain where they would mine and stuff like that. And I can't remember if they mined for silver or for gold, but we started to smell smoke and see smoke, and this is like 2005. A huge fire had like broken out in Arizona on like one of the hillsides, and I was like I'm smelling smoke, I'm looking at smoke. And so we go down to my grandpa's retirement home, and my great grandpa's retirement home, and he's like sitting in like the main area watching TV, and we're looking at the fire happening on like a distant hillside far enough away from us that like we weren't going to be affected by it, but like close enough that we could see all the flame coming up. This big like brush wildfire. And I kept like running into my grandpa, and I'd be like, "Grandpa, grandpa, the hill's on fire, the hill's on fire." And he's like, "That's nice, Pine Sap." And just kept like watching TV and just kind of hanging out and like talking with my parents. And I would just run back out and run back in and run back out, just giving him status updates on like this fire going on, right? Um, so that was amazing. And I always went to my grandpa and grandma's house, who lives in Littleton. I would always see them and spend time with them. It was like a second home to me. Me, my sister, and all of us would stay the night, like all the time. It was something we would do every single summer. We'd always stay the night at grandma and grandpa's house. And my grandma would make some delicious frosted brownies, dude. Oh my goodness, like literally some of the best frosted brownies I have ever had in my entire life. And she'd always make like lasagna, or I love you pine poop soup. Thanks thanks God for Scroiper for the 3, bro. That means a lot to me. But we would always stay the night and just like talk with my grandma and grandpa. And my grandma would always tell us like stories good night from like Grimm's fairy tales. Um, she would tell us like all these wonderful fairy tales and all these stories and stuff like that. My mom was the same way, right? Like she she would read us like the Frog and Toad books growing up. I love Frog and Toad, dude, still do. Frog and Toad, or like I would have a bunch of the Thomas the Tank Engine take uh children's books and stuff like that. In fact, to this day, my kids, if I am meant to get married, they will be watching OG Thomas the Tank Engine. Not none of that CGI crap, okay? That's cheap, right? The OG made by like a conservative Anglican guy, Thomas the Tank Engine with actual models. That was my shiznit growing up, bro. That was like what I watched all the time, every day. Thomas the Tank Engine. I was a huge Thomas fan. I would see they used to do the like train Thomas thing in Colorado, and I actually went to see it and see the history of the trains. I thought I wanted to be a train conductor when I was a kid and stuff like that. So um it was one of those things where I just loved Thomas, dude. I loved it so much. I still remember the episode with like the boulder and stuff like that, and Rusty and the boulder, and it was excellent. And Dexter's Laboratory was based. I watched a ton of Dexter's Laboratory, bro. I mean, Boomerang was huge growing up because Boomerang always played cartoons. Because sometimes, I mean, I'm sorry, but there were some Cartoon Network shows growing up that were a little mid. They were kind of all right. They weren't really that good. They weren't really that like great or spectacular or anything like that. So like Boomerang was always there. If I wanted to watch a good like cartoon from like when my dad was a kid or whatever, or even like just some good like early 2000s stuff, like Boomerang was it. And I remember the cool like teen show, there were two of them made by the same guy. The cool like teen show that I was like, this is edgy and awesome, was Samurai Jack, bro. Samurai Jack was so badass. Like it was amazing. I remember just seeing him like cut through like robots and stuff like that. Like it was nothing. And I was like, dude, I want to like learn how to use a sword so bad. This is amazing. Right. Um, and it's amazing because I saw all that, and also the other show I was gonna mention is, I don't know if you guys remember the OG Star Wars: The Clone Wars animation, not the CGI one, not the CGI one that like came later, kind of towards the early 2010s and late 2000s, but like the OG made by the same guy who made Samurai Jack. Like there were two movies that were kind of his compiled animations. That cartoon too, oh my goodness, dude, still one of my favorite cartoons of all time. I love it so much. So, I mean, that was just so amazing and stuff like that. Also, Trad Patrick in chat, Pine Sav, you talk bad about me, but you won't debate me. American Boy, dude, you're literally modded. I can tell you're messing with you, bro. You still have the mod thing going on. So great time trying to troll, but that ain't gonna work on me. So I could go on and on and on about all the shows and stuff like that. But yeah, it was great. Like I just had an amazing childhood, and I got like the Wii when it first came out, or not first came out, but like 2 years after, so it was really still new. And I just would play like my Wii all the time. I played Flash games growing up. Um, and like Age of War and stuff like that, that had the song where it was like din 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 din, and you like had to make your guys like from like the caveman age, the medieval age and stuff like that, go back and forth. I loved that so much. I loved that so much. And I, for the longest time, wanted to get an Xbox because that was like what all the cool, like older kids were playing and stuff like that, all playing the Xbox 360, Halo Reach and stuff like that. I played Halo 2 and 1 on the PC, but like, they stopped releasing them for the PC after that. I was like, what the heck, dude? This sucks. Like, I want to continue to play Halo. So I didn't get an Xbox 360 till I think I was about 10 years old. But like when I did, it was actually no, it wasn't 10. I think it was when I was 11. But yeah, then I got a 360 and just we were balling out, bro. But I did play the PS3 and I did play Red Dead Redemption growing up, which was a great game. But yeah, so I guess I could go off on that for hours and hours and hours. But yeah, I mean, my mom and my dad, kind of talking more about my family. I talked about my sister just being awesome and I love her to death and she's my best friend. My mom and my dad are amazing. I mean, my dad is the most important man in my life. You know, I look up to him for everything. I he's my hero. He is someone who has done so many impressive things in his life and he's always carried himself very highly. He's always been a man of honor and stuff like that. And I always hope to be even just like a small reflection of the man he is. And my mom, you know, has just always loved me dearly. You know, it's just always been someone I can talk to and just, you know, I could always open up to about whatever I was going on in life and stuff like that. And, you know, my mom and my dad were my greatest advocates. Like growing up, I whenever there was a sports thing, whenever there was a game, whenever there was an activity, whenever there was something I had to go to, my mom and my dad were always there. And I literally went through Boy Scouts of America. By the way, I'm an Eagle Scout, and that was a huge part of me growing up. That will kind of tie in to the overall arc of the story. But my dad did Boy Scouts with me. You know, my dad went through all of Scouts with me, and he helped me the full way, and it was like our special thing that we got to do like every um that we got to do like all the time and stuff like that. It was just so amazing. You know what I mean? It was so fun to just like get to kind of bond with my dad in that way, you know, and do things like, you know, we'd shoot 22s at like one of the scout camps. We would go of course go camping, you know, you're in the Boy Scouts, you go camping. You know, we would there were always like cool things like metallurgy or whatever. I remember we did like a welding merit badge once and I got my welding merit badge and there was this like place in Denver we went to where I got to weld and I liked it so much that I actually thought that like uh I actually thought I wanted to become a welder for a while. It was so much fun. And so me and my dad just got to spend so much time doing that. And it was amazing. And you know, when I got to have my Eagle Scout Corps of Honor and stuff like that, like I, looking back on how much like my dad had done for me and stuff like that really mattered a lot to me. And again, my mom was also all the way through that at all my school things, always advocating for me. She worked at my school. She even worked at my high school for a while and stuff like that, and was amazing. And you know, she'd like pick me up after school and stuff like that. And you know, we would we would go like shopping in Safeway or whatever. And like one of my favorite memories actually growing up is all the times I went to the grocery store uh, because I did get a snack. That was pretty fun. I did always kind of get like a snack or something. But even just like the vibe of the grocery store, like honestly, that was the bigger thing, was the vibe of the grocery store. Because the grocery store is such a like wholesome, kind of just relaxing place. Like, I don't know why people don't like grocery shopping. It's like grocery shopping's awesome, dude. Like you just get to like zone out, just kind of get in your mood. You realize you're buying all these things that are gonna make like a great meal later and stuff like that. And I just it was so much fun. And so I'd like mess around with my mom in the grocery store and she always like she'd like jab me a little bit or whatever and it was fun. But you know that those are my parents, right? And I love them with all my heart. They are the light of my life, you know. And you know, I guess kind of tying that all into, you know, sort of the religious element, you know, how I came to accept Jesus. So I was born Episcopalian, and for those who don't know, like what the Episcopal Church of America like is, or like what is kind of like involved in its like theology or what have you, there's like basically a Robin Williams skit where it's like actually I'll even pull it up for you. I'll pull it up for you. Let's watch it. It's like 5 seconds. You know, I'll pull it up real quick. It's like a 5 second clip. It's worth watching just to illustrate what I'm talking about. Oof. God bless. Hey, God bless you too, buddy. Thanks for watching. Oh, come on. Why's my internet slow, bro? And sometimes your internet just gets slow, you know? Sucks, but it just is what it is. So, but as that's loading, I'll let it load for a little bit to kind of illustrate though. Um, I being Episcopalian sucked. It was not very fun. Um, there were good elements of it, like in of itself, but there were a lot of bad elements, you know? And it just is super liberal. I mean, it's basically like I remember just like growing up and essentially hearing like, the great flood never happened. It's just a nice story about like Noah and trusting in God. Maybe the resurrection happened, or like most of them accepted the resurrection at the very least. Um, most of the miracles in the Bible didn't really happen. My evolution and scientific theory and stuff like that, and I almost had this more like atheist kind of like skeptic approach, but I honestly credit the reason I didn't fall into sort of atheism or whatever was really because of my parents, because my parents were a lot more kind of conservative than really sort of the Episcopal Church of America. So they tried to press upon me like, no, like the flood did happen, and like that did happen with Noah. um Moses did part the Red Sea, and Jesus did resurrect. And we would actually, every Easter, my mom had this tradition. Easter was always a special time for us. She had this tradition. She called them it was this like fun little craft we had in like the little Bible school that I had gone to, where you would wrap a marshmallow in a little croissant, and you would bake it. And what it was to illustrate is like when the body of our Lord was wrapped up and the tomb was rolled back, there was no body, right? And my mom would even had this recipe for another dessert called like tomb cookies, where it like disappeared on the inside to illustrate like, hey, Jesus resurrected and stuff like that. So it was just kind of like a little wholesome thing. But like, I really credit my parents for like me, even at my worst, constantly believing that like Jesus is the Messiah. Like I was never an atheist. And I thank our Lord every single day that I had my parents in my life exerting that kind of influence because of that. Because if it had just been the Episcopal Church of America, dog, it could have been really bad, to be honest. I mean, it was just a garbage fire. But growing up, we didn't really go to church on Sundays and stuff like that, and so that's why I didn't really get that influence. It was just kind of something I knew that we were, and it was just kind of something that we had been, it was kind of like an identity thing, but it was just kind of a cultural thing. And it was like, oh, we'll read the Bible in our own time or whatever. I did go to a Lutheran preschool though, and the Lutheran preschool was pretty cool because I didn't realize they broke off of the ELCA because they were so liberal. So I think that was another part of like why I did believe in God and why I did believe all the miracles in the Bible actually happened. Because like all the people at that Lutheran preschool like were teaching us like, no, this is real. Like, Jesus did do this, right? Jesus did resurrect. Again, Moses did part the Red Sea. The flood did happen. All these things. And I just remember like falling, like from the time I was young, like almost just like falling in love with Jesus. But I wanted to show you just the Robin Williams, um, Episcopalian thing to kind of give you an illustration of how bad it was.
I don't understand the whole. I don't understand the whole fundamentalist thing. You see, I'm an Episcopal, that's Catholic light. Same religion, half the guilt. Catholics, you've got confession. Episcopals, we've got Thanksgiving where Dad has a couple of gin and tonics. I never loved your mother, you know that, don't you? But that's because the Episcopal Church was basically a Protestant church. It was Henry VIII going, I'm Pope now, ha 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 ha. But then there were other Protestants who thought he was too loose, and then they formed the Puritans, our ancestors. People so uptight, the English kicked them out. How fucking anal do you have to be for the English to say, get the fuck out? Take your little pimp shoes, get on the Sunflower, and go. And they land in America going, hello, we bring you guilt, syphilis, and alcohol. And the Indians go, oh, we have a gift for you. For us, it is a medicinal and sacred herb. but for you, it'll be an addictive carcinogen. Enjoy.
And I think you'll enjoy tobacco for many years.
Hey, 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 7. Hey, Worst chair. This is my wife, sits with a full house. Welcome to Custer's, a casino that cares. It is now time for the white man to...
Okay, that kind of I think is bridged past that. But like the other one was like reasons I'm Episcopalian, the shirt. And look at these reasons, dog. I mean, these are just so bad. These are so cringe. Top 10 reasons for being Episcopalian according to Robin Williams. No snake handling. You can believe in dinosaurs. My evolution, guys! Evolution! Oh my goodness! We were just monkeys on the space rock, right? Male and female. God, we created them. Male and female, we ordained them. So literally women priests, or women priestesses, right? You don't have to check your brains at the door. No scientific bigotry. You know, we believe in science here, right? It literally was like the early version of like, in this house, we believe in science. Pew acrobatics. And that's kind of referring to like just stepping past people, like when the communion thing would happen, right? Whatever. Church years color coded. That's like the liturgy stuff. Free wine on Sunday. Wow. Very irreverent joke. All the pageantry, none of the guilt. Yeah, none of the guilt because there's no concept of sin in Episcopalianism. Let me illustrate something to you guys. I'm just gonna read these 2 points, and then I'm gonna say something. You don't have to know how to swim to get baptized. Okay, whatever. No matter what you believe, there's bound to be at least one Episcopalian that agrees with you because they believe in absolutely nothing. They don't believe in anything. Episcopalians basically do not believe in sin. Unless you support Trump or you're Adolf Hitler, they believe that just everyone goes to heaven. And it created such this indifferentist mindset in me that like I was lost for so long because I basically was just not from my mom or my dad. My mom and my dad were way more faithful than any of this crap, but it just created this like this like mindset in me where it was like, oh, doesn't matter, man. Like whatever I do, like I'll just go to heaven and like it'll be okay, man. And it's like, no, it won't be, right? It won't be okay. And so like it's really why I became so like lax in Christianity, like kind of entering like the middle of my life up until now, right? Like kind of my teenage years, because I just was kind of like, well, I guess no matter what I'll do, I'll go to heaven or whatever. But I'll get it more into that. But kind of talking about some other early things that had happened in my life. So Grace Episcopal Church in Georgetown, Colorado was where I was baptized. And one of my earliest memories of like Christianity was being in like kind of the sanctuary area of this church. And I think probably looking at that like right window, that right wall over there. And I just remember there being like a lot of light. I just remember there being like a lot of light and a lot of almost like peace and just sort of a lot of like this indescribable feeling that God loves me and that God loves me very, very, very much. And it's hard to illustrate, but I just remember being so enamored with like the architecture and the beauty and the prestige of like this old parish, and just seeing that light, that sunlight peer through the window, and just feeling like it was the light of God, just like healing me, sanctifying me, and God letting me know I love you. I love you, right? And it's like I never forgot that. I must have been like 3 years old when that happened. But all I remember is just like in that moment, like God, like Jesus letting me know, like I love you, and I always will love you, and it just meant a lot to me, and that was just it is a very beautiful like little building and stuff like that. If you're ever in Georgetown, you should definitely the Catholic Church there is gorgeous. It's very, very gorgeous, but yeah, I mean that was just kind of my experiences, like that little small moment of like God letting me know at a very young age, like, I love you, my son. And it kind of like never left me throughout my entire life, even though I ran from him a little later. And then I mentioned Sedona earlier, and there's this chapel in Sedona called Chapel of the Holy Cross, and this is my earliest memory of Catholicism. Like my earliest Catholic memory was going to this chapel, right? And I don't believe they had the crucifix of our Lord yet when I had gone. It's beautiful. It's really, really gorgeous. But this is one of the older pictures. And I remember being behind the pews and seeing where they had the candles. And I almost, for some reason, I don't know why, there must have been like a statue of Mary there or something, but I just remember seeing Mary and being like in love with Mary. Like I never had like a phase when I was like a Protestant where like I disdained our Blessed Mother. I just didn't. I have like always been in love with Mary since the time I was young. I could never like, even at my most Protestant, I just could never imagine downplaying the Mother of God. I did not like, even when I was Protestant, I didn't understand why people couldn't accept the Immaculate Conception or the Annunciation. It's like it only makes sense. She's the most beautiful woman that's ever lived. And I brought up the Georgetown, the Sedona thing because it was like that's where that's where Jesus told me he loved me, and this is where Mary told me that she loved me. And it like really kind of just continued on for like the rest of my life. Like for the rest of my life, I just constantly remembered like those two moments of like Jesus saying I love you and Mary saying I love you and I'm with you forever. And it really mattered a lot to me. And I didn't come to know really what that meant till like much later in my life. And so, going back to it, I had a really good upbringing, but I didn't really know a lot about I didn't really know a lot about Christianity growing up. I had a very basic understanding, and I was kind of liberal in some sense growing up, but I was kind of liberal just out of like the convention of like, oh, what's so wrong with being it was someone being gay? Love is love, or like, I wasn't like emphatic about like abortion or whatever, but I was like, oh, well, if it's a case of rape or incest or whatever, just kind of the like just sort of the like liberal by convention. But I did come from a more conservative family, sort of. Or yeah, I came from a more conservative family, and so I was just kind of like I didn't really have any hard political stances um, till I was in high school. For most of my life, I was pretty apolitical and stuff like that, and I didn't know a whole lot about God. Like I knew that the Bible was there. I almost though would hear people speak so ill of the Bible all the time that it just kind of created this weirdly like I'm Christian, but I'm not one of those Christians kind of attitude. Like I'm not one of those kooky fundamentalists that believe that these things actually happen. And I every day feel guilt and pain that I ever thought that. Like it is a guilt that carries on with me in my life because like I just didn't know. I didn't know what I was saying, and like I just was very nominally Christian and stuff like that. And so, I went through elementary school. Elementary school was awesome. I made like these memories with like people that just would last my entire life. And, I had so many just loving friends and loving teachers, and just sort of my whole upbringing there. um and there was a special place. I talked about the house we had in Winter Park a long time ago, and that house meant a lot to me because again, it was being out in nature. It was like every summer, man, like we would go up there with my grandparents and stay the night and have campfires, and like I'd mountain bike with my dad all around the trails and stuff like that. And it was almost like when middle school hit, like a lot of my life kind of like just felt like it was it was wrong. Like a lot of my life kind of just it almost felt like when middle school had hit, like the reality of sort of the world started to really descend upon me. Because again, like in elementary school, like I was in a very innocent environment. There was not really a whole lot of like bad stuff that people talked about. There wasn't a lot of bad stuff that people did. Um, it was a very like kind of just innocent, sheltered environment. And then when I went to middle school, it was like that the whole lid blew off. Like the whole lid just completely blew off the top. And it was like kids were doing drugs. There were girls getting like pregnant at like age 13. Like there were kids like I started hearing about kids committing suicide. Like I was like, what the hell am I doing here, man? What am I doing here? Like all of my like friends and stuff like that I had grown up with in elementary school started to kind of like parse out. S- some of my most best friends stayed with me, but some of the other ones that I had gone through like elementary school with, it's like we grew distant. We just weren't really sort of like a community anymore the way we were, going this like bigger school, so many more kids. And instead it was like suddenly now, kids were doing drugs, kids were fornicating and doing just awful stuff and like getting in trouble with the law and all that. And I really hated it, you know? And it was very hard for me because it someone said in chat it was like 0 to 60. Yeah. It was 0 to 60 real quick. And um and look, man, I've gotten kind of a-logged for this, and like people love to give me shit about this all the time, but like I can't not say this because it was a big part of like kind of just the struggles that I have experienced in my life. But I'm sure someone's gonna make fun of me. I'm sure someone's gonna clip it and make a joke or whatever, and so be it. Like if I gotta say this to be real, I just want to be real. But um we all have those that age at like as men and stuff like that where unfortunately our exposure to sort of the internet and stuff like that gets to a point where we finally encounter pornography you know and it's not fun. It's really not fun. I was a very good kid growing up. Like I didn't really get into a whole lot of trouble. I didn't really get into like fights with people. I didn't really disobey I never talked back to my parents. I was very scared of that actually. Still am a little bit. Or a lot of it, I should say, not a little bit. But I remember like the first time I broke that line. I crossed that line and I had been exposed to just the evils of like internet pornography. It was like something in me just collapsed. And it was because I had someone once make fun of me and they're like, oh, because you saw a boobie or whatever and it would scared you. It's like no, it's like none of that. It's like I just had never done anything in my life that like that bad. Like I had never done anything in my life that felt like that, like gross. And like I didn't know what I was seeing. I didn't know what I was looking at. It was so much to have to handle in such a short moment. And it traumatized me. Like I just felt like I was not this like innocent kid anymore. I didn't feel like I was this kid who was the good kid who like my parents were proud of and stuff like that. I felt like I was this bad degenerate. I felt like I was this horrible, wicked, evil man. And I kept that like guilt locked inside of me like for so long. And dude, I didn't tell my parents because I was scared. I was like, if my mom or my dad finds out, dude, I'm not gonna be their little boy anymore. I'm not gonna be their son anymore. Like I'm gonna be this like gross like guy, and I just kept it like all boxed up inside, the guilt, the shame, the sadness of all of it, and it ate away at me like every single day. I mean, for so long, like I had in the pit of my stomach this weight, this guilt that I carried. And I didn't like laugh, I didn't smile as much anymore. I just was sad like all the time. I just anytime I had a good moment, it was always like marked by sort of this sadness of like I have done this like horrible thing, and I'm like not the kid that I was supposed to be. And so like I just started to go on this like spiral and it's sort of my middle school years where like I wasn't getting into like real big trouble or whatever, but I just really sort of just didn't feel like everything was right. It felt like the world was so wrong. It felt like I was ripped out of this environment that I like wanted to go back to. Like I used to just have these visions of going back to a more innocent time. I was like I would pay anything to just go back to like again playing on the field again, playing at recess, being a kid, going home after school and hanging out with friends or whatever. And it felt like all of that was ripped away from me because I did that. And I being a kid, I didn't know how to get off of it. I had tried, and there was like almost like an entire year where like I hadn't, but again it was like the guilt of having known that I had done that like had kept me sort of like constantly thinking in the back of my mind like you've done this thing, you've crossed the line, like everybody, like what you've done, and you have to live with the guilt of like what you've done. And it crushed me. It crushed me so much. It really it made me feel like everything that I did was not how it was supposed to be. It felt like everything I did, I was like on this alternative timeline that was not supposed to be the course of my life. And it was so painful that I just didn't know sometimes how to deal with it. And I continued in middle school, and I still had good memories in middle school. I mean, I had a friend who lived up the street named would go up to his house and we play like Slenderman and stuff like that. I remember when that was huge, and like iDubbbz was like streaming it and stuff like that. We watched a lot of iDubbbz too. I remember iDubbbz was kind of a pretty big deal back then, and Filthy Frank and like all those guys. And we'd like watch Family Guy, and we'd play a ton of Battlefield 4 because like Battlefield 4 had just come out and it was like such a fun game, dude. I mean, I always remember going on that one like map in Asia where there was like all the rivers and stuff like that, or that one desert map where there were all these there were all these like vehicles and stuff like that. And it was super super fun. I got into airsoft too, and my friend, he lived in an area where there like were a ton of rocks, so we would just like hide behind rocks. Like one of our friends had like a sniper rifle, and he would just like pick people off with it and stuff like that. But man, it hurts so much to get hit by the sniper rifle, dude. Oh my goodness, I would have like welts on my arm after. One of my friends older. My friend's older brother's friend even like jumped into a cactus one time, and his mom had to like help him like kind of get the needles out of like his like underpants and stuff like that. Like it was some wild times, man. It was some wild times. But um I also at that time had kind of become like more of kind of an emo a little bit. Like I wanted to be more like edgy and dark. And admittedly, that was kind of because of the women I liked. Like, listen. I know everyone's gonna say fake cell in the chat, and yes, you're right. I'm sorry for that. I'm just telling the story like how it is. But you know, dude, like literally, Gwen from Total Drama Island like got me messed up, bro. Frankie from Monsters House, flipping the girl from Danny Phantom, like I wanted to be a bad boy because like that's what I wanted to like those were the girls I wanted to go out with at the time. Cause look, I was a young guy. Like I was like a young dude. I Spexo $23. I know that's not Spexo. Nice try, Trad Patrick. Pinecep, can you show us the picture in the back, please? No, that's not happening. But I was trying to impress this one particular girl, and I'm not okay. There are so many allegations I'm not going to beat, but we just got to say them. We just got to say I have to be honest about the L's that I've taken in my life. There was goth Latina girl that I had a massive crush on in 8th grade, and the whole reason I hung around her friend group was literally just to try and go out with her. That was the only reason, dude. Like, I wasn't even like a bad kid. Like, I didn't want to get into any bad stuff, but like, they were kind of like the bad, more like edgy kids and stuff like that. And I literally was like, I was like, bro, if like Yasmin goes out with me, dude, like, we're so back. Like, we are so back right now. So I took a simp L there. And this is why I tell you guys not to simp, because I've lived through it. I've lived through the goth Latina phase. Okay, I've been down bad, you know, and because of that, like I hung out with this group that I shouldn't have hung out with, you know, like one of the gentlemen in the group. He's a great guy now. He's really gotten his life figured out, but like at the time he was like smoking pot and stuff like that. And the only reason I hung out with that group was to go out with her and stuff like that. God, Latina. $3 Pine Sap. Can you show us the hydro flask? Dude, that's so true. We almost had a Mrs. Sap, dude. Well, that's not even the worst part. My first girlfriend. So then we get to high school, and I didn't wind up asking Yasmin out. So that never worked out, you know. It just never worked out or whatever. There was another goth girl I was into towards the end of middle school, but I feel like I kind of was a little too simpy and kind of creeped her out a little bit. But then I actually had a girl ask me out my freshman year of high school, and she happened to be Native American. So I was taking L's in this time, dude. I was taking so many L's, and like I wasn't even really that into her, but I just was kind of like me with girl like me. I go out with girl, you know. She asked me to like the Sadie Hopkins dance and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, I'll definitely take you up on that. And then I was like, do you want to be my girlfriend? She's like, yeah. And then we had this really like kind of weird relationship for a while where like I remember like one time, by the way, this is true. I've never kissed a girl. I have never kissed a girl. I have tried, but I have never kissed a girl. I am a virgin in all areas of the word, right? And I remember like after the dance I had tried to kiss her, but then she was like, bro, are you gonna ring the doorbell? And I'm like, come on, man. Like, I tried, right? But I'm glad I didn't now. I'm glad I didn't, because it kept me my incel card, it kept my incel card. And I remember even when she broke up with me, like I wasn't sad about it like at all. Like I completely like the same day I had like track practice, and I just did not care. I was like whatever, but then after that I dated another alt chick, and she got me messed up, bro. She ditched me at at homecoming, and I wanted to date her friend, and I almost kind of did towards the end of high school, but that's a different story and stuff like that. Let's just say I I'm not beating any allegations. My incel card has probably been just obliterated at this point. Absolutely destroyed. But American boy Pine Sap kissed me at the frat party in Colorado. Yeah, that never happened, big guy. Nice try though. But I know my incel card has been completely destroyed, but hey, you know what? That stuff happens, it happens. Thank goodness I am a virgin though. Only by the grace of God though. Lust has been a struggle in my life and stuff like that, and I've tried to be open about that, because I don't want to pretend like I'm some Chad or whatever. It is probably the worst sin that I have to struggle with or whatever. But by the grace of God, I'm a virgin, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, that was kind of some interesting stuff that went on. But when I got to high school and stuff like that, I'll say kind of the more fun stuff, and then kind of get into the more like back on track to whole conversion. I joined the mountain bike team, and the mountain bike team, dude, meant so much to me. I mean, the mountain bike team was like my sport. It was my football. I cared about it. I showed up to almost every other practice. Native goth girl finds out. Can you show me the flag in the back, please? No, dude, that's not happening. But I loved mountain biking. We would go all around Colorado to do cross country racing, cross country mountain bike racing, and we just got to go to some cool spots. I got to explore literally the state I lived in, and it was like every weekend we got to go to like some new location, stay at some new hotel, and it was just amazing. And I literally remember when it ended, like I cried when it ended, and I and my dad got teared up too because it was like it was another thing that we did together. It was another thing that we did together, and like it mattered so much to me. He would always uh, ride at practices alongside me and stuff like that. He was even one of the coaches actually too. So he's one of the coaches, and yeah, I loved that entire team. All my brothers and sisters on that team, they were great people, honestly. Really good values. Fairly conservative and stuff like that. Just like we would also make just some incredible jokes and stuff like that. Like I love those memories so much. It between that and Boy Scouts, like those were the best memories of all of high school for me because actual high school kind of sucked ass. I'm not, or sorry, I shouldn't curse. Apologies for that, guys. It kind of sucked. It was horrible. I did not like high school. High school was lame and horrible and gay. I hated it completely. But like all the things that I did outside of high school, Boy Scouts and mountain biking, really mattered so much to me. Um, let's see here. Pine Sap ran over three cyclists last Pine Sap I ran over three cyclists last week. Next week the goal is 10. Oh my goodness, dude. The lot bro donated $50. Is this my buddy? This is literally okay. So guys, I'm not gonna dox, but this is literally my best friend who just super chatted. This is my best friend who just super chatted. I didn't even know he was watching this, but my best friend just super chatted. Actually, that means a lot to me. He's not in Colorado with me right now, but he did go to Fuentes Rally 2 with me, and that was really special. I was so happy to see him again because he lives in Florida and stuff like that. But he sent $50. He said, "Hey bro, high school was incredible. Meeting you in lunch in the band hallway was unforgettable. Our talks on the porch, figuring life out one day at a time. Godspeed to you, and thank you for the Catholic journey. God be with you till we meet again." Well, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, buddy. And lot bro, I love you, dude. You're my best friend, man. Like everything, you're a big part of this story too, and stuff like that. I'm glad actually you super chatted because there's just so many things that happen that I have to mention all of it and stuff like that. So I will mention how my best friend factors in this story. So that was the really good stuff. I'm gonna try to keep my composure for this next part. So, I talked earlier about like I really was like struggling with kind of that addiction, and it wasn't only that. It was I towards sort of the end of middle school had started to practice like Buddhist syncretism. So syncretism, for those who don't know what that word means, it's like where you take two religions and you try to like practice them at the same time. So I called myself like a Christian Buddhist syncretist, right? And I basically believe that like people could choose to either go to heaven or go be reincarnated and stuff like that. It was totally goofy. There was like no support for it. It literally was just like high school white people Buddhism. You know what I mean? American Boy tip $3. Pine Sap forgot I'm also a big part of the story. Well, thanks, buddy. You sure are. But I had started. I mean, I'd started to kind of go back to church on the insistence of my mom asking that we go every Christmas Eve. And so we would go to an Episcopal church every Christmas Eve, but that was really kind of the only time we would go. And I started to sort of become a little more concerned with like the meaning of life, like why I was here, why I was living and stuff like that. And uh, Buddhism seemed like an escape from sort of the materialism of the Western world. It seemed like an escape from sort of the materialism of like suburbia and like the meaninglessness of kind of that environment. You know what I mean? Where it just feels like people are always chasing a dollar or the white picket fence or just trying to get the new corporate job. And I like from the time I was young, even until now, this hasn't changed. I never wanted that. I didn't want the big corporate job. I didn't want the big cushy desk, you know, Mr. Pinesap, how are you doing? And chasing that dollar and chasing just meaningless material things for the rest of my life. And I realized how sad that made me in my life. And I thought that Buddhism was an escape, and it wasn't. Um, so I remember one day, like I wake up and I go to school, and I'd been watching like a lot of different videos on like the heat death of the universe and like everything's gonna collapse and everything's gonna go away. And Buddhism was very nihilistic. It was basically like you're gonna just become one with everything, man. You're gonna just fade out of existence and none of this matters. And that never really sat right with me, but I didn't know like what was true. And I'd basically turned my back to Jesus. I was like Christian in name only. And I sorry about this. Uh I remember waking up like one day and going to school and going through all of that and just thinking to myself like I really do not like being alive. I really don't like my life. I don't feel like there's any meaning to life or what have you. And I was just like I want to kill myself, you know? Um I just remember thinking like I just don't want to live anymore. I thought the pain of having to look at the future and thinking that I was just going to live this cookie cutter life like everybody else and I was going to grow old and die and own a lot of stuff and none of it would have mattered and that I was just going to die and fade away someday. I was like I can't live like this. And I remember going to my mom and I was like mom, like I don't want to live anymore. I do not like my life. I think it would be better if I just wasn't alive anymore. Um, and I would almost constantly have thoughts of just like killing myself because I didn't want to have to deal with the pain of what it meant to again continue on in a life so full of meaninglessness and being just completely in the darkest point of addiction and not knowing who to reach out to or who to talk to about it. And just the fact that like I didn't think that my life had any value. I was just so tired of how my life didn't feel like I was innocent anymore. It felt like I had just fucked up my life and everything was messed up now and everything was wrong and I was like I just want to be dead. I just want to die. I just don't want to be here anymore. Because I would show up to school and I would go to school and I would do school and I would come home and I'd go to sleep and I'd go to school and I'd show up to school and I'd go home and I'd go sleep. And that was every single day of my life. And in between there, just trying to drown my pain in meaningless debauchery and just sin and trying to get a hold of um just like one day at a time, man. And I just thought like sometimes it would be so easy if I just threw myself in front of a moving car and I just didn't have to deal with this anymore. And I didn't have to keep waking up to the same old nothing. And, or I never formulated a plan or whatever, but it was just stuff like, what if I hang myself? Or like, I know there's a bridge near the school. Why don't I just jump off of it one day? And, you know, kind of make all of that pain stop. And when I told my mom, her face dropped and she was really, really, really upset. And I think the hardest thing about the idea of ever killing myself was not that I would die or that I would be gone, but that my mom and my dad would be destroyed for the rest of their life. And um I just couldn't do that. I couldn't do that to my sister. I couldn't do that to my mom. I couldn't do that to my dad. Um but I just could not live the way I was living anymore. I just could not live day after day after day just in the same meaningless cycle, worrying about when I was going to die and not feeling like there was any purpose to this life, that there wasn't any meaning to the pain that I felt, that there wasn't any redemption for what I had done, and that my whole world had collapsed around me and I just could not live that way anymore. And it really was only the thought that this would mess up my mom and this would mess up my dad that made me keep on going, because I really just, if it had only been me, I just would have killed myself. I couldn't have done it anymore. You know, I just could not have done the day and night cycle of just not having any meaning to this life. And I just was so destroyed at the fact that there just was no reason that I existed. There was no reason for why I was here, and there was no meaning to my pain. And I just remember, I still this day can't remember what did it. I don't remember if it was a friend who talked to me. I don't remember if it was a video I was watching. I had kind of, because of Gamergate, had become more political, because games were something that I had cared about, and it was something that when I saw people attacking them and stuff like that, I wanted to get more involved and like defend what mattered to me. Um, but I just remember, someone sharing the Bible with me for the first time, and and I just knew that he cared. I just knew that Jesus cared, and I had him, and I had. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just pushed him away. I just pushed him away all my life. And I kept running from him, and I kept saying just horrible shit about just everything about the Bible, and thinking that like being religious was bad, or it meant that I was like some like trailer park hillbilly or something, and just like pushing him away and pushing him away and pushing him away. And he was the only thing that gave my life meaning. He was the only thing that told me that I mattered, and that I had actually a future, and that no matter like what went wrong in my life, like I could always lean on him. But it hurt to know so much that he loved me for so many years, and I hadn't loved him. And that just destroyed me. It just was like it's like an arrow in my heart, man. I mean, to know that he, if I was the only person who ever needed to be redeemed, he would have still gone through all of that pain just so I could be his son and I could be with him in heaven forever. Like, there isn't anything more in this life that matters more than that. You know? Sorry. My nose is starting to run. And I just wanted to be his. And so the life that I didn't want anymore, he gave me back. And I just said, I remember saying to myself, like, for the rest of my life, Jesus, I am yours. Like, I am your son. I will do anything for you. I will live for you in any way, shape, or form I have to, even if it's crawling on my hands and knees for the rest of my life. Because he, he cares about every single one of you. No matter what you're dealing with, no matter whether you are contemplating that it's the end and that you've done so many things in your life, he does care about you. He loves you so much, and to ever give up on him is the worst kind of pain that you could inflict on him. And I just I just felt so horrible that I turned my back on him and that I hadn't believed. And so I had said, I'm done with Buddhism. I don't want anything to do with it. It is a lie. It is a trick from the devil. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore. And I was like, Jesus, I'm yours for the rest of my life. I don't care what it takes. I don't care how I need to live. I will be yours for the rest of my life. And in dying to myself, I found new life in him. And so, it was kind of the middle of high school at that point where all of that had happened. I told myself, like, I don't know what Christianity looks like. I don't know, like, what is true. I don't know, like, what is kind of the path. But I asked my mom, like, what are we? And she said Episcopalian, and I kind of looked it up or whatever. And because I did not know my denominations back then. I just thought I was generically Christian. And I almost instantly, in this change of heart, did not like Episcopalianism because of what I stated earlier. It was just very liberal. It was very it was very just not centered on the gospel. And I wanted to just be faithful to the Bible. The Bible mattered so much to me. It was my world. It was my entire world was scripture. And I was like, I don't want to be anywhere where that's not valued. So, I would attend the Episcopal services or whatever whenever we would go, but my heart wasn't in it because I didn't really want to be there. I wanted to be I loved being there with my family, and I figured, wherever I can be with God, I want to be with him. But that I knew that wasn't the place where he wanted me. Um, and I had become like way more conservative. You know, a lot of people in our age group, I tell this story. A lot of people in our age group have have a coming out. Mine was the opposite. I came out of the closet to be homophobic. I remember sitting down with my parents and being like, "Mom and Dad, I am not okay with the gay stuff at all." Like that, like I almost had a complete like it was like a 180. I was like, "Mom and Dad, like I think that stuff's disgusting and it goes against scripture." So, I just like told it like it was. I was like, "I don't like that stuff." I wanted to be gospel centered. I wanted to be centered on scripture. Um, and so that's what I did. And during that time, it was kind of interesting because I was getting more into faith. I was getting more into my walk with Christ. But I had also gotten into punk rock, and I hadn't really listened to a whole lot of music in high school. I had listened to like pop punk and stuff like that, but I liked punk rock because at the time it like kind of spoke to what felt to me like it was real. It had no problem just like being real and raw and authentic and stuff like that. So I'd gotten to the point where I wanted to like shave my head. I wanted to, wear like combat boots. I wanted to be like a monster. Like I wanted to be scary. I wanted to be intimidating. I wanted to be like the kind of guy that like people looked at and they're like, don't mess with them. Like don't mess with that guy. And it was just because I was angry. Like I was angry and I was full of rage. I was like just pumped. I was just like pumped up to be like just a skinhead, and just being like, I want to rebel against the world, and I want to rebel against like this corrupt society that tells me I gotta wear a suit and tie and I gotta go to work every day and stuff like that. I was like, I'm not doing any of that. Like cut out that noise. I don't want to do any of that. I wanna do completely, anything to rebel against this sick society. And so, me and my friends, uh, we were almost kind of like a crew a little bit, right? We'd hang out at like lunch and stuff like that. And we would just say it like it was. Like we would just openly talk about like being like homophobic and stuff like that. And like just how like we loved God and stuff like that. My friend Lot Bro was in that and stuff like that. And we would go to punk shows and like just moshed so hard, man. I mean, I remember there was one time when I was a senior in high school where there was this like boomer, there was this like Gen X guy who he was messing with me in the pit, man. He just kept shoving me at the back. He kept pushing me in the back, and I took him and I threw him out of the pit. I like literally like picked him up and I just threw him to the side. I pushed him so hard that he just went flying out of the pit. And for the rest of the night, he didn't mess with me, but like I would always be in the middle of the pit. I always wanted to be in the middle of the pit. I wanted to get punched. I wanted to be violent. I wanted to be aggressive. Like I didn't want to hurt anybody when I say that. Like it wasn't like violent like I wanted to hurt anybody, but I just wanted to like get angry. I just wanted to be angry. I wanted to be like a monster, you know? And I just wanted to rebel. And so, towards the end of high school, like I was just on this like war path kind of to just be, you know, totally against society and stuff like that. I mean, Gamergate had already made me feel like I wasn't a part of this society because I'm a young Christian white man. Like I'm not a part of this society. This society is against me, so I'm against it. You know, I wanted to be a menace. I wanted to be a monster. I just wanted it to destroy. And you know, I kind of just had that mindset towards the end of high school and stuff like that, and was getting more and more conservative. And I had started watching like Ben Shapiro and stuff like that when I again around the time of Gamergate, like that sophomore year of high school. But even like Gamergate or like Matt Walsh or kind of those guys just felt like kind of weak to me. Like they didn't feel strong enough. They didn't feel hardcore enough. It was just, the everyone who grew up in that time remembers 2016, 2017, angry feminist woke SJW cringe compilations and stuff like that. And I was done with that. I was like ready. I was like, I want to be a super soldier. I want to be a skinhead. Like I'm not into any of this. I'm not into any of this woke SJW stuff. Like I want to be scary. You know what I mean? Not like hurting people scary, but like just real, just like raw, like authentic. And so I kind of stopped watching them, but I was listening to a lot of like hardcore right wing punk bands at that time. Like New Glory is actually a band that I still like quite a bit. I didn't get into like Screwdriver, like the actual like Natsock band, like the actual neo-Nazi bands, but I did get into like kind of like the hard American right, like right wing hardcore and like what's that form of punk that I'm trying to think of? Uh man, I'm trying to Trying to think of that. It's like boots and braces and stuff like that. I'm trying to think of the exact genre that it is, but um, yeah, I just gotten into all that, you know, and I swap swag said TRS era Wignats. It wasn't really like that. I wasn't even watching I didn't even know what TRS was, right? I wasn't even really that plugged in. Um I just was one of those guys where it was like just had gotten so sick of kind of the corniness of like the conservative movement or whatever. So like when I went to college, right? I had graduated high school, had a beautiful graduation. It was actually a really great way to close out high school. I'll never forget it. Beautiful graduation. And said goodbye to everybody and stuff like that. And then went to college. And I remember in college, I was like, I didn't know what to expect because all I remembered reading in college or in high school was about how like colleges have these roaming gangs of like Antifa on campus and they'll mess you up, dude. They'll put you in a garbage can, they'll beat you up. Like if you're not careful, like, they've got cameras everywhere. And so I almost went into this mindset of college of like, I'm like I'm on a battlefield. It's war. You know what I mean? Like it's like ideological war. Not war like violence, but just like ideological war. And just wanted to be super hardcore, wanted to be even kind of off-putting to people who weren't like with me. And I get on campus and I'm like moving into my dorm and stuff like that and doing all the kind of activities, but already I can tell college is just degenerate. I mean, we had like one of those barstool pages where literally there were people like recording videos of people getting just absolutely destroyed at parties, people recording videos of like the sounds of like other people like fornicating in their room and stuff like that. It was just degenerate. Like my whole floor smelled like pot smoke. The frat guys just would destroy the like communal bathroom we had and stuff like that. So it just was really sick. And I was only by the grace of God preserved from getting in sort of that sick environment, right? And I remember I was like, okay, well, I got to be with conservatives, so I'm going to squat up with Turning Point USA. And I go to Turning Point USA and it sucks, dude. I mean, it just sucks so much. Like I was not a groiper or anything like that at that time, but already it was like Turning Point USA was just so gay. It was just like low energy. I remember like one of the girls there was like, you can't legislate morality and stuff like that. You can't make laws for people around morality. What are you, a fascist or whatever? And she was saying to me like, you can't legislate, moral laws and stuff like that. And when we were going around telling our ideology, I know this is gonna be like, oh, Mr. Edgy over here. So I know this is a little cringe, but they went around and it was like, yeah, I'm a libertarian. Yeah, I'm like a generic Republican. And then it came to me and I'm like, I'm a Christian ultra nationalist. I'm like, I'm a Christian ultra nationalist. TPUSA era Wignat. Yeah, true. I'm like, I'm a Christian ultra nationalist. I'm just like hardcore. Just I want a Christian government. I want it to be fundamentally Christian. I don't want there to be any secularism. I hate secularism, and like everyone there was like, "Oh, okay. That's all right, I guess." And already, man, I could tell it was not the kind of environment that I was going to vibe with. So, I was like, "Okay, this is kind of a bust." I still went to some of their events and was still a little involved, but it was kind of a little bit of a bust. And then the club fair was coming up, right? The club fair for the whole school was coming up. So I went to that cuz I'm like I want to get in some clubs, I want to be a part of some clubs. And I go there and I'm like, okay, well what's the Christian club on campus, right? And I go there and there's Crew, right? CRU. And Crew is just this like pro-gay liberal Protestant club. Literally their sign had a rainbow flag on it and said all are welcome. And I said, I'm not welcome. So I keep walking around, completely ignored them. And then I see the Catholic Club on campus. And I see they're the Sisters of Life. I see, my priests now who I'm still wonderful friends with and stuff like that. They're in their full habits, full yeah, or not full habits, sorry, full cassocks, right? Not even clerical suits, full cassocks. And there's a statue of Mary. And by this point, I was by this point already identifying myself as an Anglo Catholic, kind of a more Anglican of like a Catholic variety. So I was like, okay, like this is where I'm supposed to be at. So I was like, hey man, I'm not Catholic, but like I would definitely love to like come to mass and stuff like that. This seems a lot more, what I'm about. And and they're like, oh yeah, and my friend James was working the table, and James is like, oh yeah, of course, man, and like sign up here and stuff like that. I was like, okay, I'm signing up. And I remember like I go to the first mass on campus, and it had been the first mass I had ever been to in my entire life. First mass of my entire life. And it had, there it was a Novus Ordo mass. They had guitar and stuff like that, but it was really reverent. And I just remember being like in love with the mass. I was like, I don't know like what it is about this place, but I love it. I'm in love with mass. I love mass. And I remember my priest now, who I'm friends with, telling us, you know, okay, well, when you come up for Holy Communion, if you're not in a state of grace, please cross your arms, or if you're not Catholic. And I just got angry, man. I was like, how dare they? Those Catholics think I'm not a real Christian. Popery, papism, how dare they discriminate against me? I'm a real Christian and stuff like that. I got so angry. I loved the mass, but I was like so angry, and I'm a Christian like anybody else or whatever. And I remember I was so mad. I was so mad, in fact, that I looked it up online. Like you could see the indents on my phone, right? I'm angrily just typing in my iPhone, the screen's breaking with every single key click, right? Tap, 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 tap. And I look up Father Mike Schmidt's Why Non-Catholics Can Receive Communion video. And he says probably the most beautiful thing I'll ever remember. He's like, we don't deny you communion because we hate you. It's because we love you. And by denying you communion, it means we want you to enter into the body of Christ and become Catholic. And I was like, I can't be mad at that. Like all the anger was taken away. I was like, okay, that actually kind of makes it like I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'll ever become Catholic, but like, okay, that makes sense, I guess. That makes sense. Fair enough, right? And so like my anger just part out, I was like, okay, fine, I understand, right? Um and then after that, my friend James, who had been working the club table and stuff like that, was like, well, hey man, let's go get coffee together. Because he was I can't remember if he was president of the club or what position he was, but he's like, let's go get coffee together and let's talk, man. And I remember sitting down, and I at this point I had considered Catholics almost like Mormons. Like I was like, I know the spiel. They're gonna try and convert me to their weird religion, and make me worship the Pope and stuff like that. So, we sit down at this coffee shop, and we're talking, and I say to him, I'm like, James, I'm never gonna become Catholic, dude. Like it's never gonna happen. I will never be Catholic. You'll never find me being Catholic at all. I'm never gonna become Catholic. Rather than James being like, oh no, that's okay, man, I totally understand. He was like, well, I'll pray for you. That's all he said. Just really kind. He's like, I'll pray for you. You know? And we keep walking and stuff like that, and we're walking around and talking about politics a little bit because I was really into politics at the time, and like that was just kind of our interaction, and he's telling me some cool G.K. Chesterton quotes, and I was like, oh, okay, Chesterton, I've heard some quotes from him, right? But that was just kind of my intro to sort of my friendship with him. And then he invited me to this club with another friend of mine, Michael, who's much, much older than I am. He's an adult. But he ran this philosophy club based on Mere Christianity, the book from C.S. Lewis, right? And what we would do is we would meet in sort of the computer science building on campus, which is a beautiful building, right? The basement's kind of a beautiful area. It's not really a basement, it's actually like ground level. So it like opens up the street. It's really beautiful, a lot of light. And we would just sit and we would watch like this hand drawn series of C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity and discuss it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a great edifying series. Just kind of was great apologetics. It like strengthened my faith. But I remember like Michael was becoming Catholic and he used to be Anglican. And, he was talking to me and stuff like that. And I would always talk to him. I'm like, well, I believe in excuse me, sorry, a little bit of burp. I'm like, dude, I believe in branch theory. I'm like, listen, Lutherans, like traditional, almost kind of like redeemed Zoomers, like kind of like traditional Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox, we're all part of the one true church, man. And Mike looks at me and he's like, actually, no, we're not. Like, he's like, what you have to understand, Pine Sap, is there's one church founded by Christ, right? And that's the Catholic Church. And we all have to belong to the Catholic Church. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, man. Yeah, whatever. I don't, whatever the Catholics say, you know what I mean? But it still seemed odd to me at the time. It's like this guy's Anglican, he's becoming Catholic, right? And I remember, kind of getting back and having a lot to think about. And TPUSA was bringing Will Witt to campus. Will Witt was going to speak. If you guys remember Will Witt, he doesn't really do anything anymore. But back then, like, 2020, that kind of, 2020, 2019, he was doing a lot for Turning Point USA. And around this time, this is when Groiper War 1 was starting, right? Going up to Charlie Kirk on campus, asking him questions about the USS Liberty, asking him questions about how does gay sex, forward the conservative movement in America and stuff like that. And we, I'm in that auditorium. Not a groiper at all. I'm not a groiper at this point. And I'm like sitting there, and there's a lot of people, turning out for this event. Someone, there literally was a Jewish guy who had a like MAGA kippa on. It was like a kippa, but it said MAGA on the top. I was like, that was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. And I wasn't expecting, I didn't know what the event was going to be like or whatever, but it turned out to be pretty like nonchalant. And even the groiper guy who was there, like, was trying to groip him, but like Will Witt wasn't really given a whole lot to work with. I mean, his speech was pretty just simple. He was like, we just need to be like a more Christian country, man, and like, support families and, make families Christian again and stuff like that. So it was pretty innocuous, to be honest. But I was talking after, and I'd met this one guy there that looked like Patrick Bateman. Like, the guy literally looked like Patrick Bateman. He was tall, slicked back hair, looked like he worked on Wall Street. And I was like talking to him and stuff like that. He's like, well, do you know Nick Fuentes? Do you know Nick Fuentes? I'm like, no, who is that? He's like, you should look him up, man. He said he's an America First patriot. I'm like, okay, like, bet I like that. That sounds kind of cool. And when we were talking with this gentleman, I told him what denomination I was, and he said that he was Catholic. And I'm not trying to be critical of him, but I kind of wish at the time he had evangelized to me a little bit more. It was almost kind of like when he talked to me, he was just like, oh yeah, Protestants are cringe, and that didn't really do a lot for me being in that mindset. And it was actually kind of that experience that always made me say, like, if I'm talking to someone who's not Catholic, I shouldn't just be like, you're cringe or whatever. It's like, I should really try to like make them understand like why they should become Catholic. So, it was a minor interaction, but I remember talking to my dad about Nick and stuff like that, not knowing who he was. My dad was like, I don't know, Pine Sap, like, here's what Sebastian Gorka had to say about him. And it literally was Sebastian Gorka in that one clip going off about Nick being like, he's a disgusting anti-Semite. He's absolutely disgusting and stuff like that. And, because of like Robert Spencer and Jihad Watch and stuff like that, which was a political thing that I had followed for a long time, I was still very in kind of that Zionistic mindset. So I was like, oh, anti Semitic? Dude, I don't know if I can follow this, man. But as time went on, like politics kept coming up. And again, I just was not liking sort of like the generic, like normie conservative crap I was seeing, the like soft feminism, the sort of like still sort of pro gay stance and stuff like that. And I was like, this stuff just kind of sucks. And, you know, I really had continued to hear the name Nick over and over and over, especially because there was this one guy who I had watched, and I've talked about this guy before, Political Juice. He was probably one of my favorite political content creators at that time, and Political Juice hated Groypers, absolutely hated Groypers, right? And he would like mock them whenever they trolled like Charlie Kirk or whatever. But the more and more I started to watch them like trolling Charlie Kirk, I'm like, these guys are kind of badass. Like I kind of like these guys. Like these guys are kind of like asking the right questions. And I'm like, yeah, why is Rob Smith in this movement? That doesn't make any sense. And like the kind of like civil normie conservatism that like Political Juice represented started to just seem like distasteful to me. It was like lame and gay and like old and just not anything that I wanted. I wanted to be a radical. I wanted to be like an extremist, not in the manner of hurting anybody, but in the manner of like caring about my politics to a core, you know? And it wasn't doing it for me anymore. So I keep hearing about Nick. I keep hearing about Nick. And then I kind of like start soft watching him. I like see some clips of him. I'm like, Sap Swag donated $1. Political Jews. Your favorite channel was Political Juice. Von sound effect. No, juice like juice you drink, dude. You thought you could try and get me, right? You thought you could try and get me on that, but you didn't, right? So, Political Juice, like, I was like, okay, I like how he animates his videos. That's cool, I guess. But, like, it just doesn't mean the same thing to me. And he was, like, someone I watched more in high school. So I was like, I'm not really going to watch him anymore. And I just started watching more and more Nick clips. And, again, I was still Protestant. So, like, I remember, like, Nick was talking about, like, irony one time. And he was talking about, like, what the SAP fund is filled, anonymous. Well, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. That means a lot to me. Um, I was watching some clips. I remember the one clip where he was like, he's like, well, why do we talk about America first, right? Why do we talk about putting this country first when it's Freemasonic? And he said Protestant, and I'm like, he's anti-Protestant. Like, how dare Nick be anti-Protestant and stuff like that. But I kind of was like, in the back of my head, I was like, okay, this clip though is kind of based. I kind of like this clip a little bit, like it's true. This country is Freemasonic and wrong and stuff like that. And so that kind of was how I was going for a while, but I was still kind of distracted with like the ways of this world and with sort of the ways of just kind of how this whole how this whole environment I was living in college was blinding me to seeking truth because it was so easy. It's like, Pine Sap, let's go get pitas, bro, and hang out and hang out in my dorm room while we get really drunk and you just sit there because you don't really like to drink alcohol. Because I closest I've ever been to getting drunk was getting a little buzzed on like a double shot of whiskey once, but like I don't drink because alcohol has been a problem in my family and I don't want to be an alcoholic, right? So, it was one of those things where it was like I I just was so blinded from continuing to pursue truth because just the bread and circuses of college. And then COVID hits. And once COVID hits, it's like everyone's going back home. Everyone's going back to their environment. We don't know like what COVID even is. Like it seemed like this super virus, like the new Black Plague. And I was scared. I thought it was like the end of the world. Like I legit thought like we're gonna be like fighting in the streets for like resources or whatever. Like it kind of scared me for a while. But then I realized it literally was BS. And I'm like, I don't believe in this Corona COVID stuff at all whatsoever, right? Um, we go back home and we're doing school online, and because we're doing school online, I'm just at my house like literally all day, not going anywhere, not going out, not really doing anything. I'm like thinking to myself the entire time, like what is life? What is the reason why I'm here? You know, why am I here? And I'm sitting there and I'm like contemplating, and Anglicanism, it's like the more and more I think about it, it's just not making sense. It's like, okay, so the Anglo-Catholic movement, it's this small group of like conservative churches that have banded together. I'm like, how could Jesus leave the church like that? I'm like, Matthew 16:18 explicitly says that like the gates of hell will never prevail. And I'm like, we've got the Episcopal Church like marrying off dudes and ordaining women and stuff like that. And like, there's people who are becoming Catholic from Anglicanism, and then there's just the small little like Anglo-Catholic movement. I'm like, what what is really sort of the like reason behind all of this? You know? Like did the Holy like I literally thought to myself, I'm like, did the Holy Spirit just leave the church? Like if this is supposed to be the true church of Christ, why would the Holy Spirit just leave like that? And I started to realize, I'm like, maybe this isn't the true church of Christ, because I know God would not leave his church in this way. And so I remember one day after like Zoom class, which I was not paying attention to at all. I did not give two bits of a bippy about it. I was totally zoning out and totally looking up like religious questions. I turn off my computer and I'm like in my basement, and there's like a lot of light. My basement isn't a walkout basement, but there's a lot of windows and a lot of light that peer in. And it's like that afternoon, and there's a lot of just beautiful light pouring in. And I kneel down at my desk and I pray and I say, God, I do not care if I need to be a Seventh day Adventist. I do not care if I need to be Baptist. I don't care if I need to still be an Anglican or Lutheran or a Catholic. I just want to know your church. I prayed that prayer. I was like, I just want to know where your true church is. And so I start like researching more, and I start super heavy booster tipped $25. Love you, big guy. Well, hey, thank you, buddy. Love you too. Um and I just start researching, you know? I start researching, and I start like looking into things, and I'm like, Protestantism doesn't start to make any sense. I'm like, sola scriptura, 5,000 different denominations, a bunch of people saying all these different things about what scripture contains. I'm like, this clearly is not the true church of Christ. Like the true church of Christ would be united. And then I look into Eastern Orthodoxy, and it's like, I like their emphasis on like keeping the tradition of the apostles, but I'm like, contraception, divorce, dude, like that's not it. You know? Contraception and divorce is like disgusting. I'm like, that's not like from God. That's not from the apostles. I'm like, they can talk all they want about tradition, but it's like this isn't the tradition of the church. And so like I looked at that and I was just like, no, that's not it, man. Like that's not. And I'm like, why would God demand that I become Greek or I become Russian to be a part of his true church? It's like, no, like his church would be include Greeks and Russians, but it would be universal. So we all know what was left. It was the Catholic Church. And I remember like Dr. Taylor Marshall back when he made some really, 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 really good videos, and those videos are still very good. On addressing Protestant controversies and stuff like that. Just bang, bang, bang. Here's why sola scriptura is false. Here's why Mary is immaculate and was assumed into heaven. Here's why she's the Holy Theotokos. Here's why the Pope is even a authority structure within the church, right? And like every single time I'm like trying to raise an objection, I'm like, wait a minute, that actually makes sense. Like that actually kind of fits in, right? I'm like, that actually kind of fits into my whole mindset. Like, yeah, it does make sense that like there would be um, like a pope, right? Based on Matthew 16:18. Like, wait a minute, does make sense of all these Marian dogmas and doctrines. Like, Catholicism truly hasn't changed its teaching and never will. And I'm like, and then I remember I looked up reasons to still be Anglican, and the first site that comes up is it's a Reddit post, and someone's like, or it was like a post on like Quora, and someone's like, guys, please help me. I'm finding reasons to still continue to be Anglican. And the first guy, the top guy who answers says, so I don't believe in God, but I go to church because I love the pageantry of the liturgy and stuff like that. So I guess I'm just Anglican because of my personal flavor. And I literally looked at that and I'm like, I'm not Anglican anymore. And I keep watching videos, and the straw that broke the camel's back, the single most powerful thing that destroyed Protestantism for me was when I heard 7 books are removed from my Bible. It was like the atom bomb had gone off. 7 books out of my Bible. My Bible that I was willing to die defending. The holy scriptures that I was willing to shed blood to defend. Every single word contained in there. 7 books gone, zipped, erased. And why? Oh, because Luther just thought, oh, those books shouldn't be in there. Oh, they teach purgatory. They teach all these other things that are you know not Protestant, bro. So we're gonna remove them from Holy Scripture itself. And when I saw the arguments against them, I'm like, these are lame arguments. These books should be in my Bible. These are books of Scripture. These 7 books, you know, I was pissed off. I was angry. I was like, how dare they lie to me and take my holy scriptures away from me? And I literally remember calling up my friend Michael, who I mentioned earlier. And I have my head in my hands, right? Head in my hands, and I'm like, Mike, buddy, you just got to tell me, is it true? And he's like, Pine Sap, is what true? I'm like, did they remove 7 books from my Bible? And he's like, Pine Sap, yes, it is true. They did remove 7 books from your Bible. So I'm like, okay. I can't remember what I said after that. Put down the phone. I am not Protestant anymore. I renounce Protestantism completely. I'm not Protestant. I hate Protestantism. I love the people in Protestantism, but I do not love their error, right? I hate their error. I hate the error of Protestantism with all my heart. How dare it attack Holy Scripture, the thing that is most precious to me, the very word of God. How dare they take away my books, my holy scripture, my word that I am nourished by, that I am formed by. And so I just renounced Protestantism in that moment. I'm like, I'm not a Protestant anymore. And I remember telling my sister first, because me and my sister have always talked, honestly, just about what's going on in life. I said, you know, I want to become Catholic. I think that Catholicism is true, and it's almost been proven to me without a shred of a doubt. And she was like, "Oh, okay, that sounds cool." She was just like, "Okay, that sounds awesome." And then I remember telling my mom and my dad, and initially their reception of it was very positive, but I remember the next day my mom, she comes downstairs, and I'm having breakfast, and she says to me, and this is hard to say, but she's like, I don't want you to become Catholic, because if you become Catholic, we won't be in heaven together. She's like, Catholics don't believe that non-Catholics can be in heaven, so we won't be in heaven together. And she started to cry, and I started to cry. And it was so hard for me because I love my family with all my heart. And my mom was like, can you wait? Can you wait till after college to become Catholic? And I looked at my mom and I said, I can't. I can't wait. I know this to be true. I just know that this is true. I've never known anything more in my life to be true than this. I've never been more sure of anything in my life than that the Catholic Church is the one true church of Jesus Christ. And I told her, I'm like, I have to do this. I was in the spirit and the mindset that if I had to become homeless, not because my parents would ever kick me out, my parents would never do that in a million years, but if I had to become homeless, if I had to die, if I had to lose everything that I had to become Catholic, I was going to become Catholic. It was the only thing that mattered to me at this point. And ever since then, it is the only thing that really matters to me. Is my family, and then my faith, and then my faith on top of everything. Those are the only two things that matter most to me in this entire world. And I was like, I need to become Catholic. And so I went back to school, and I go up to uh my priest, and I say, I want to be an RCIA. I want to become Catholic. You know, I'm like, I'm ready to become Catholic. I'm ready to accept Christ. And at first we were kind of going through, it's still COVID, and I'm working as like a resident assistant at the school, which, I met a lot of great people in that position, but it was really hard during COVID, and it was very difficult to do. Um and I was very depressed because I was just basically locked in my dorm all day. The only times I actually had any fun is when we did Catholic events, because none of us wore masks and none of us really believed in Rona. So we did what we wanted. And even when I got Corona, like I was like, that was totally worth it. I'm so glad that I did. But I I was on this track to becoming Catholic, and I was learning more and more about the faith. And there was a lot that I was struggling with. I was like, geez, dude, I don't know about this Vatican II stuff. Like I was watching Tim and Taylor's, series where they were like, Vatican II was like, we need rainbow felt banners and this and that, and American religious liberty and stuff like that. And so it's like when you think that, you're like, oh, then I don't like that. But then, I grew to the point where I was like, up until my confirmation, I was like, okay, like I guess I accept the council. I'm like, I don't really fully understand or whatever, but I guess I accept it, right? So I was kind of on the side, but I was just trucking along and I was becoming Catholic. But I had just gotten on Telegram, and I actually was starting to watch Spexo, and I was starting to watch Nick, and I was watching their videos a lot and stuff like that, and getting into America First. And I'm like, this is like the future movement. This is the future movement of America. Like, this is what's going to be saving America. But, my past of like kind of being this like punk rock guy was kind of also catching up with me. And I really, when I first got on Telegram, I had never been on like 4chan or whatever before. So it was almost like overdosing on red pills. And I, for a while, was headed down a really bad like Wignat path. Like just, uh, you know, your skin's the uniform you wear, brother. So you gotta understand everyone's against you and everyone's out for you and stuff like that. And I really struggled with that. And I was kind of just watching like Nick and Spexo on the side. And so I was almost like caught between two worlds. It was like I was moving closer to God, but at the same time, there was this other thing, like this Wignat stuff, kind of like almost like pulling me away. And I knew though that I wanted to live for God. So I was ultimately headed in that direction no matter what. And I remember, we were going to RCIA, we're learning, me and my friend Ben, right? We're the only two people in RCIA and like the little, campus ministry we have. And it's coming up to my first confession, and I'm like, geez, I have a lot to confess. I have years and years and years and years and years of things to confess. And I go in there, and Father John, one of my priests, is like, he tells me, he's like, you can take as long as you want. You don't need to go fast. You don't need to rush through it. Take as long as you need. And something that meant so much to me is he said, I'm honored that you chose me to be the priest that you did your first confession with. That really meant a lot for me for him to say that. And I go in there and I'm like, I'm talking about all the things that I've done in my life, and it's like I'm upset and I'm like holding back tears and stuff like that. And I just remember I'm like, Father, like I've hated people, and like I feel like it's like me as a white man versus like everyone else. And I'm like, I told him, I was like, I started to get into some like dark stuff with the whole like Nat sock stuff. Any I'm on the like I'm like kneeling on the floor, and he like gets down with me, and he hugs me, and he brings me in, and he says, God made you into a white man, and you should never be ashamed of the color of your skin, and you should never let anyone make you feel ashamed of the color of your skin. But if you think that using the tools of injustice to end injustice against white people is going to do anything, you're sorely mistaken. And it was like in that moment, it was Jesus speaking through Father John to be able to tell me it's not bad that you love your people. It's not bad that you love your race. Those are good things, but you can't hate other people. You need to love other people. You need to love other people and not see the whole world steeped in almost this racial animosity. And it was like I was just free. Like I didn't want to be a Wignat. I didn't want to go down that route anymore. I ditched all that stuff. I was like unfollowing all the like weird Telegram pages and stuff like that that were like, yeah, when the day of the rope comes or whatever. You know, not that I wanted to ever do that stuff. I really did not want to ever do that stuff in my heart of hearts, and not really even in anything I was talking about. But it just, you know, it's a negative trajectory, right? I unfollowed all those pages, and I was like, I'm just watching like Nick and Spexo. So I'm like, Nick and Spexo are Catholics. They're America first. Like they say all the right things. And I I I just keep going down that path and of becoming Catholic. And I'm leading up to the day that I'm confirmed. And I remember I take Father John aside and I said, I said, Father John, I want to take the oath against modernism, and I want to bound myself to the oath against modernism for the rest of my life. And so we have, in this campus house, this campus ministry house, we had a little side chapel. Go in the side chapel, and I look at Jesus in the tabernacle, and I recite Saint Pius X's entire oath against modernism, and I completely am bound by that oath. In that moment, Father John prays over me. He bounds me by that oath, and that is the most important oath I've ever taken in my entire life. It's the oath against modernism. And it was important to me because it proclaimed my fidelity to Jesus. It proclaimed that I wanted to follow him, that I wanted to defend his church forever. And it just mattered so much to me to be able to affirm my fidelity to Christ and my love for Jesus in that moment. And I was still deciding my confirmation saint at that time. I was like debating. I was like, maybe someone from my heritage, like Saint Clovis or like Saint Alfred the Great, like kind of like cool, like British or French saints or whatever. But then I remember the day of my confirmation, there's just a voice that says to me, Saint Paul. Saint Paul is your confirmation saint. It was like Jesus speaking to me and saying, the reason that Saint Paul is your confirmation saint is because you wanted to persecute the church. I used to watch Gangs of New York, and I used to root for Bill the Butcher because Bill the Butcher was a know-nothing anti-Catholic. And I'm like, yeah, get those Catholics, destroy those Catholics and stuff like that. I wanted to persecute the church. I thought the church was evil. I thought that Catholics worship the Pope and stuff like that. And then something in my heart changed so much that I was like, I would die for the Catholic Church. I would die for Catholicism. I would die for Jesus Christ and his church. And that's the only thing that matters to me. And so, like St. Paul, I had fallen off my horse. and I'd seen the light of Christ, and I had been delivered by Jesus. And I said, I want to be Catholic, and I want to renounce my life of ever persecuting the church. And so, um, my confirmation comes up, and my mom at the time wanted me to wear a mask because I had gotten COVID, and she was just concerned for my health. And ideally, I wouldn't have worn a mask, but I love my mom so much, I didn't want to. I didn't want to disobey her. So I wore a mask, but I, of course, took off the mask when I received Holy Communion on the tongue and stuff like that. And I just remember receiving for the first time and being like, this is everything that I could have ever wanted. This is everything that I've ever wanted in my entire life, contained in the body and blood of Jesus Christ. And I just, it just mattered so much to me to be able to receive Jesus's body and blood that he shed for me on Calvary, that I was redeemed, I was healed by it, and that I could finally walk with Jesus. And I still this day don't have words for my first communion. It just was like I was home. I was where I needed to be. And so, I done all that, and I was living this Catholic life, and I was just starting. I was really enthusiastic. Um, excuse me. Adolf or Mussolini. I don't really want to answer that right now, brother. Um, Anonymous, $5. Wonderful testimony. Many similar struggles. Love from England. God bless you, brother. I'll answer that other question later, though. Maybe. Just remind me. Um, but I'd become Catholic, and I was still kind of at this time kind of flirting with sort of the mad trad world, because again, Dr. Taylor Marshall was my introduction to the church, so he was kind of a trusted voice for me at the time. I was like, I thought he was this trustworthy guy. I thought, like, just sort of his videos and stuff like that, just kind of always speaking the truth and stuff like that. So I you know continued to watch him, and and that's when he was starting to go down his like really dark path. I remember just like being stressed out like all the time. I was like, is Pope Francis just going to declare heresy tomorrow? Like, is he just going to bind the church of heresy? Like, what's happening? What's going on? I was so angry. I was so angry, and I was so filled with stress and anxiety all the time, like thinking and just gritting my teeth, and feeling this like lump in my stomach of just like, is the church okay? Is the church going to survive or what have you? And I struggled so much. And I had started to sort of kind of get more in contact with the SSPX. And when I was at college and kind of still becoming Catholic, I had even done a Zoom call with like Father Paul Robinson and stuff like that. And by the way, Father Paul Robinson, I want him to be in a regular canonical status. He's a great man. I have nothing but wonderful praise to say about Father Paul Robinson. He is fantastic. He was always wonderful with me whenever I talked to him and stuff like that. He's a great, very holy man. And because he's a great, very holy man, I desperately pray either the society achieves a normal canonical status in the church, or he enters the fraternity of St. Peter, because he's a very holy man. He's a very good man. And I had done a Zoom call with them, and I know that there was a chapel out in Watkins, Colorado, St. Isidore of the Field, and I wanted to go to it that summer. So me and my buddies, like, we would go there some Sundays, and attend the liturgy there and stuff like that. And the liturgy was beautiful; it was very good. I even had a very good confession there, but I remember when I received the Eucharist, like something just felt like off. Like I like wasn't supposed to be there. There just wasn't something right about the whole environment. I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, I have all the smells, I have all the bells. Is the Latin Mass. Like, I've been to Latin Mass at Our Lady Mount Carmel, if you guys know that parish in Colorado, and that's the Fraternity of St. Peter Parish. Beautiful. I've received Holy Communion there before, and I never felt weird about that. So it's like, why am I at this parish feeling like weird. I thought this was like, to be a traditional Catholic. And, I just remember feeling really strange after the experience. And then, Traditionis Custodes came out. I was just crushed for a bit. And I was like, did I make the right decision becoming Catholic? Like, I don't know, like I was so full of like confusion and questions, just wondering was all of this right? And I remember watching the debate between Eric Ibarra and Jay, and Eric just absolutely wiping the floor with Jay, just absolutely crushing him and being like, no, Rome will always have the primacy, right? This is the promise that Christ has gave us. We should always trust that there will always be successors to St. Peter forever and that the faith will never be lost. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, well, Eastern Orthodoxy is again not true, right? And I'm like, what, I'm like, so then what's wrong? And I'm like, my my presuppositions about Vatican II, about the council, about Pope Francis, about Pope St. John Paul II, it's like maybe that's what's wrong. Maybe I got to consider that more because like Michael Lofton and stuff like that was first making videos, which I will fully say his defenses of Pope Francis are still fantastic. I know people are going to insult him and make fun of him and the trad nuance memes or whatever. And yes, he does have some antics sometimes that are maybe a little ridiculous in some areas, but his defenses of Pope Francis legitimately are fantastic. And I will defend him. I will die on that hill of defending Pope Francis. He is right in defending Pope Francis. And if you as a Catholic agree with the people who attack him because of that, I would seriously probe the depths of your soul. I would seriously think about what you are doing by doing that. Because there is something wrong with you if you're attacking Michael Lofton for that reason. You can criticize, like, I'm critical of him for the way that he acted towards Christian Wagner and Hassan over the scriptural inerrancy thing, fully join with them in that criticism. And that was kind of what demystified him a little bit for me. But if you're making fun of him for defending Pope Francis, you've got some screws loose, to be quite blunt. Because he did do a lot for me, and he did a lot for so many other people for defending Pope Francis. And it really helped me want to be Catholic and stay Catholic. And when I started to go back and I started to like look at the council and stuff like that, I was reading Servant of God, Father John Hardin. I was reading Cardinal Avery Dulles. I was reading Father William G. Most. I was, reading books. One of the books that actually completely altered my whole perception of what it meant to be a truly traditional Catholic was actually a beautiful book. Not many people know this book, but it's probably one of the best books ever written on this topic. It's called War Against the Papacy by Dr. James Larson, I believe. This book completely changed my whole view of everything because James Larson was a traditional Catholic. He was not a modernist. He was not a liberal. He was not any of those awful, evil things we can never be, right? But he was someone who said, look, it is not traditional to attack the papacy. It is not traditional to attack an ecumenical council. He's like, those things are safeguarded by the Holy Spirit. And if you're mistrusting that, you're just mistrusting God. You're just calling God a liar. Did God lie when he told us, I'm with you forever? I will always protect you. I will always love you? No, not at all. So he completely changed my view on that. And again, like Cardinal Dulles completely changed my view. He had a great article that he wrote on First Things years and years and years ago about religious liberty that completely changed my view of Dignitatis Humanae. And I started to research this stuff, and I was angry because I felt like I was lied to. This whole time, this ecumenical council that was inspired by the Holy Spirit, that was safeguarded by the Holy Spirit, and addressed things for our times that are completely applicable. How are Catholics supposed to operate in the modern world in being fidelitous to the gospel and not giving into the world, right? Gaudium et Spes, Lumen Gentium, all these beautiful documents. I was told to just hate hate these documents. I was told they were modernist, and I was told that they were evil, and they weren't. They were good. They were protected by God himself. There were even theologians that I will regret for the rest of my life ever speaking out against them. Hans von Balthasar, Henri de Lubac, who Henri de Lubac was so faithful as a Catholic that there were other Jesuits, when he took the cardinal hat, they would not show up to his ceremony because they're like, "Oh, he's a traditionalist," and stuff like that. Hans von Balthasar wrote a book called A Short Primer for the Confused Layman, which was literally to help people after Vatican II navigate the crisis in the church. Like, these are like saints of God. These are holy men. And I was like, how could I have ever spoken out against these men of God? How could I have ever spoken out against an ecumenical council and Pope Francis, dude? Pope Francis, who has defended the church's doctrine. You know, there are, of course, charitable critiques you can have, but he is not a heretic by any means. He's never been one. And I felt so lied to and so angry that I had ever attacked Pope Francis, and I completely regretted it. And so when I went back to school, I went up to Father John. I'm like, Father John, I need to have confession with you. We go out near the chapel on campus, and I kneel down. I'm like, Father John, I this whole summer attended the SSPX, most of the summer. And I kind of affirm their errors and stuff like that, and I was a mad trad. And he said, he's like, Pine Sap, he's like, it's good. He's like, you want to be traditional, of course you should be traditional, but he's like, but they are not. He's like, they have problems with the church. They do not have a canonical status in the church. He's like, Archbishop Aquila has written against them, you know and I was like, I know. And he's like, I want you. So I get done confessing. He's like, I want you to say the Tridentine profession of faith, the profession of faith from the Council of Trent, every single night. And I want you to also pray a novena to a saint that has that you feel called to pray to, who is obedient to the papacy. And I said, maybe Saint Padre Pio, and he's like, yes, I want you to pray a novena to Saint Padre Pio. So for those 9 days, I prayed, I recited the Tridentine Creed front to back, and I prayed a novena to Saint Padre Pio every single night. And every single night of those 9 nights. And ever since then, I will die for Pope Francis. I would give my life for Pope Francis. I would take a bullet for Pope Francis. I would have a knife driven into my throat and slice open my throat like a dog for Pope Francis or for any of the other successors of St. Peter. That's how much I will defend the papacy. I am on fire in defending Christ's vicar now, thanks to the intercession of St. Padre Pio. And I'm wearing his medal right now. I'm actually wearing a medal of his right now. And he changed me by his intercession. And I felt so bad that I spoke against Pope Francis. I felt so bad that I spoke against Vatican II. And I just said to myself, I don't ever want anyone to be led down this false way and almost be led outside the church like I was, into sedevacantism, into Eastern Orthodoxy, into the SSPX, into any of these groups that take us away from Christ. And that's when I started to get more involved with like the chats and stuff like that. And I remember, since I was already on Telegram and already on there, I joined Spexo's chat because I'd been watching his show for a long time. And I join his chat, and I'm just kind of talking around a little bit, and he's actually asking about the SSPX. And he's like, do you want to do a show on it? I'm like, yeah, I would love to do a show. I'd love to. And I did the show, and I didn't show my face at all or whatever because I was worried about OPSEC stuff. And we get done doing the show, and I give this whole testimony that I've given to you now, and this whole journey, and sort of the theological justification behind it. And he's like, dude, that was great. Like, we should do a podcast together. Like, he's like, I think people would really like that. Like, yeah, man, like that sounds odd. Like, I'd be honored to do it. And then that's literally how Logos Triumphant started, because we loved E. Michael Jones so much. We're like, we love the term Logos because it illustrated just how much Christ is wisdom. Christ is the word. Christ is meaning for why we are here, why we exist. His love, the whole reason for everything is Jesus Christ. So we said we need to have Logos in the name, and we need to understand that Christ is triumphant. Right? Christ is triumphant over death and the world and everything in it. So Logos Triumphant merged from there. And I started off small. I was still worried about like OPSEC or whatever. So I would do like dark around my face. But I was like, I'm like, man, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die with my boots on. If someone's going to come after me and be like, this is who Pine Sap really is or whatever, I'm going to die with my boots on, because I stand by everything that I've said. I stand by being Catholic. I stand by my Catholic faith, and I'm not afraid of what they're going to throw at me. I don't want to be afraid of what they're going to throw at me. So I said, I'm just going to be who I am. So that kind of got us to where we are now. Where we are now, it's been an interesting journey. Where I'm at now, I there's been a lot of beautiful things with the show, and it's just improved, and it's gotten better and better and better. I I sometimes don't like how sometimes social media has, I think, made my temper more short and made me sometimes lose my patience with people. Um, but I really am trying to love everybody, and I really am trying to be a better Catholic every single day. And I'm not perfect, and I'm sure people can look at me and point out inconsistencies in my behavior and point out that I'm a hypocrite and sinner and all those things, and they'd be right. I am all those things. But I want you guys to know that whenever I turn on this camera, whenever I do any of this, it is real. I care about all of this, and it means the world to me. And I love being Catholic, and I love Jesus Christ. And this testimony, this story, is just a testament to everything that he has done in my life and everything that my Catholic faith has done. And so that's the long story. That's the that's the story of how I got here, from start to finish and stuff like that. And I hope there's more beautiful stories in the future, but um I just am really happy that I got to share that with you guys. It really mattered a lot to me. And I know um it was real, it was raw, but I wouldn't have any other way of just being honest. It's like this is the man that I am. This is the story that I have. And I love Jesus. I love Mary with all my heart. And I love their church. And I will die as a Catholic. Even if I have to live the rest of my life crawling on all fours, I will live and die as a Catholic. That is my faith, and that is what I believe in. So yeah, I just wanted to give insight into that whole world. I just wanted to give insight into where I was coming from with all of that. You know. Um, but thank you, brother. Bravo, man. Beautiful. W Pine 7. Oh, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I'm glad that I could redo this story with a little bit more organization and a nicer camera and a nicer mic. I hope my mic was okay during this. I think it was, but yeah, I just, that's the whole story. Where can I watch Nick? You can watch Nick if you type in Nick Fuentes on Rumble. You can watch Nick on Rumble or cozy.tv/Nick. And yeah, you can watch him on Cozy. You can watch him on Rumble. America First with Nicholas J. Fuentes. Sog said, once again, amazing stream. Thank you, buddy. Lady said, W Pine Sap. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Also, Mussolini or Hitler. Mussolini, because St. Padre Pio did not like Hitler and called him. There were a lot of prophecies actually that the saints had that by Mussolini allying with him that he would lose the war and stuff like that. And I completely believe those prophecies. So definitely Mussolini. Um, I hope you show this to your kids one day. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. W. Pine Sap. Your story with the addiction was similar to my story. It's similar to a lot of men's stories, dude. And look, like, I've had people use that against me. I mean, there was even a guy in a Twitter space the other night that was trying to be like, Pine Soup helped me get over my, and he was trying to mock me or whatever. And the reason I talk about that stuff is because there are a lot of men suffering in silence with, an addiction to pornography. It's something that we don't like to talk about. It's something that we don't like to pretend is there, but it is something that like so many men are suffering and they're not getting the help that they need. And it's like, if I got to be the one to take arrows and bullets and be mocked and be made fun of and, you know, uh, uh, have people make jokes my way, so be it, dude. I just want people to understand that they are you as a young man are loved by Jesus Christ and you can be free of that. You don't have to be addicted to anything. You don't have to be addicted to drugs, substances, pornography, um, fornication, gambling, smoking, alcohol. It doesn't matter what it is. You can be free of all of it. And it's not that you're going to be free in maybe one day or 1 year or what have you, but if you just try a little bit each day and you just try to pray and trust in God a little bit more, he will deliver you out of that. I can guarantee it. um and Cat Monk said, pray the divine mercy chaplet to overcome the temptation of lust. Absolutely. Don't go after goth Latinas, guys. Listen, do not make the mistake I did. Don't go after goth Latinas. Let that be a warning story to you guys. Let that be a warning story. Do not go after goth Latinas. It's a bad trip, man. It's a bad trip. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But definitely pray. Definitely pray. Always find what sort of prayer can help you in whatever state in life you find yourself. Whether that is praying the rosary every single day, whether that's praying the Divine Mercy Chaplet, whatever it is, pray every single day, and God will be with you, man. He really will be. I want to stay for a little bit. I do need to go eventually because actually me and my best friend who lives in this house with me, there's three of us, not including me, but four of us including me. We're gonna go get some euros for dinner, and I want to just make sure that we make it before the place closes, because it's gonna be really good. I'm really excited for it. Goth Latina is a wild combo, dude. I know, man. What was I thinking? Pine Sap and the boys. That's real, dude. Pine Sap and the boys. We all take up our crosses and we all fall, including the Lord. We can all reflect on our past and what it means to be, what it means under the light of the life and teachings of Christ. That is very real, my brother. That is very real. Random said my ex was a Latina, never again. Dang, man. Brutal. Brutal. There's a kid's devotion. Many can follow on this. The way of the cross. The way of the cross is beautiful. I think I've heard of that before. That book, if I'm not mistaken. That's a very beautiful book. Yvonne Tubla said, "What did oh, sorry, the do you mean the Latins? Goth Latina, do you mean go the Latins?" I guess so. Yeah, go Latins. Go Latin. Latin's awesome, man. Latin's awesome. If you guys have any other questions or something like that, you don't have to super chat in by any means. You can just ask them in the chat. I'll see them right there. Go ahead and ask. I'll give it a little bit more, but then I'll definitely get going so we make it on time and don't miss when the restaurant closes. Other than St. Paul and St. Padre Pio, are there any other saints that have helped in my conversion? So, in regards to sort of the addiction that I've struggled with and stuff like that, Saint Andrew Wooters has been a massive saint in my life. He has been a model of who I want to be. That even to my dying breath, I want to I want to die as a Catholic. And I think St. Andrew Wooter's living his life in such a sinful way, but at the very end to be able to just say, heretic I was, or rather, adulterer I was, heretic never. It means his story means the world to me. And so I actually have a giant icon of him in my room back home on my wall because his story is just powerful. Um, oh, Patrick Royper said, "Can I have mod?" Yeah, dude. Let me see here. Sorry, the chat's got to catch up. Let's see here. Yeah, you can have mod. Is addiction to corn a mortal sin? The addiction, while taking away some of the culpability, it is still a mortal sin, and you should still completely confess it and go to confession every single time. If you fall into that stuff, you should still go to confession. Confession's the only way that you're gonna get over something like that, right? That's the only way. God is our salvation. Hey man, what's up? And yes, it is a mortal sin. Which way, modern man? Very true. Marty the Mushroom Man said, "What did you major in at college?" An undergrad in computer science and a master's degree in marketing. Aryan no more. The Goth Latins were domesticated and we love them. Aryans no more. True, dude. Goth Latina GF or the priesthood? Which way? So true, dude. So true. So true, my brother. That is accurate. Pine, you and Spexo have helped me come back home to the Catholic Church. ES said, "Well, thank you, brother. I really appreciate that." Papuan said 369 said that dude was a Chad. It's a great story. It really is a great story, man. I love it. Am I coming to AFPAC 4? Yeah, I am, dude. You're gonna see me there. Are you guys excited for AFPAC 4? I'm excited, dude. I'll get to hang out with you guys at AFPAC 4. Yeah, I'm actually seeing about uh buying plane tickets and stuff like that today. My mom is really good at that, so she was kind of watching that. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna definitely gonna see if I can, or not see if I can. I'm definitely coming to AFPAC, which will be really fun. So I'm excited for that. Pine Sap, what's your current mewing streak? I actually haven't been counting, but I have been mewing and stuff like that. Maybe like an hour. Maybe an hour is what I can measure. Pine Sap, have you ever been on the Durango Silverton narrow gauge railroad? I don't think I have actually. I think I need to go check that out. Maybe I was as a kid, but I should go on it again since I'm an adult now. Pine Sap, would it break the seal of confession if the priest made your penance like turn yourself in if you commit murder or tell your wife you cheated on her? Just curious, I've heard different answers. I don't think that would break the seal of confession because it's not the priest revealing your sin. It's rather doing him asking you to do something that would be like correspondent to an actual amendment of that sin. Took a buddy of mine weekly confession daily mass to overcome his addiction to corn. He says all the early mornings to go to mass was worth it. Pray and confess. God loves you. That's true. And also don't hang out at your house all day. Like go outside, go for walks, go pray the rosary outside and just stay, just keep active. If you keep active, if you're going to the gym a lot, you're spending time with friends and stuff like that, it's really hard. You'll be so tired and so out of it and so active in your life, you'll hardly even remember that stuff, man. Like it'll be a great way to just put all that nasty stuff out of your life. A's in chat if you're going to AFPAC. Hefleek Roiper's going. Let's go, dude. Let's flip and go. I love Hefleek Roiper. I can't come, but it's cool that you were going. Ah, oh, dude, Patrick, why aren't you coming, dude? Why aren't you coming to AFPAC 4, bro? It sucks, man. Christian Wagner said he's going to it. Yeah, he sure is. He might be a part of the meme mansion that I'm staying at. The meme mansion. Promise to go to AFPAC 5 as I will likely be able to go with my brother. Let's flip and go, dude. Pine Sap looks maxing base pilled. Oh, thanks, man. Jawline and chin look amazing. You must be doing heavy wall sleep. Yeah, man. That's also just like my family and stuff like that. My dad has a really good jawline. And the men on my mom's side have a really good jawline too. So it's kind of a mix of both. But thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Shout out to the Bosif Rosary group. Yes, dude, the Bosif Rosary group. Bosif is awesome. That dude is on his way to becoming a saint. I really admire his holiness and stuff like that a lot. Definitely watch his streams in the morning and check out his Rosary group. I definitely need to show more for his Rosary group and even tune in on him. Tolstoy or Dostoevsky? Dostoevsky, because I'm pretty sure Tolstoy was actually a heretic, believe it or not. He had a lot of different heresies that were really kind of sussy. So I would definitely say Dostoevsky. And Dostoevsky's stories, I've heard pray tell certain, or not pray tell, I don't know why I said that. Certain elements of his stories, like the character of the Inquisitor or whatever, which illustrates some really good concepts. So I think Dostoevsky is kind of up there. Hey, Pine Sap, I'm trying to make friends with others at the parish. I'm just asking for prayers to help me with the difficulties of being open with befriending others. Thanks, friend. I will gladly pray for you, repose. God bless you, brother. Problem solved. So true. Bosif is awesome. Saint Bosif of Cozy. Let's go. Where else is he streaming? I think just Cozy, if I'm not mistaken. Tolstoy is kind of cringe. Tolstoy is gay. Yeah, that's true. Favorite book? The Bible. Well, I mean that's an easy one, right? The Bible, of course, but the Bible is even more than a book. It's even more than a book, man. Pine Sap, can I get an unblock on Twitter? Okay, what's your at, bro? I can unblock you on Twitter. Just send your ad in chat. Pine women deacons in Eastern Orthodoxy. Where is Gay Cryer's response? He's just gonna cope and say, well, that's like the Greek Orthodox Church. That's not the Russian Orthodox Church, so we're totally unaffected. Oh, you're Pine Sapien? Okay, I'm sorry, man. I didn't know if you were like trying to A-log me or something, but if you're just making jokes or whatever, I'll unblock you, okay? I'm sorry, man. I don't know. People can kind of be nasty sometimes or whatever. I mean, if you're just really good at trolling me still and I'm still falling for the bit, then, I guess shame on me, but hey, that's okay. You're not really doing anything harmful or anything like that. So I'll definitely unblock you. Pine Sapien. Pine Sapien, dude. I didn't know I'm a Sapien. And you were unblocked, bro. Dang. Man made some sad edits, dude. That's sad. Yeah, but you're unblocked now. I don't know why you put a picture of my body on American History X, but hey, I mean, that's one way of being creative or expressive, I guess. So, hey, love you, big guy. Love you too, buddy. God bless you. Favorite not but favorite book though. That's a good question. Favorite book, I really like the Evidence for Papal Primacy, honestly. It's such a like short little book. I mean, it's not really a whole lot, but I'm trying to look for it on my shelf. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's not really a big book, it's not really like a whole lot, but it's just a good book. I like it a lot. It's like it's just got really cool proofs in it, and it's like kind of one of the coolest books I've found in a long time and stuff like that. But yeah, I like it. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty solid. He had a lot of heresies that were sus. You can't wait for that quote to be a book in the life of Pine Sap. So true, dude. I'm even lucky for something like that. What do you think of the Nouvelle Theologie? I think it's kind of weird because in the category, Balthazar and Hans Küng are put in the same place, but literally one called the other an apostate. Well, that's what also I'm trying to remember. Dr. Declue says, Richard Declue says, he oftentimes talks about how it's not really accurate to like lump, because like sometimes the ressourcement or the resourcement theologians get lumped in there, but that's not really accurate because Hans Küng, Karl Rahner, all those guys were not ressourcement theologians. Ressourcement was like the faithful, like Cardinal John Danilou or Henri de Lubac or Hans von Balthasar, who were faithful to the church and faithful to the gospel and to tradition, and were not modernists by any means. And they unfortunately get lumped in there, which is not accurate at all. Nouvelle Trilogie, I would say, is probably more like, again, your Hans Kungs or your Karl Ronners or like Dominique Chenu or, any of those guys who were like actually impious and actual modernists. Look up Tolstoy movement. He is a gay antichrist. I would believe it. Favorite novel? I really liked Frankenstein. Frankenstein left a big impression on me of man not playing God, and also I don't mean to sound like a middle schooler when I say this, like who's the real monster, but like legit, like by the end of that book, you're like, honestly, Dr. Frankenstein was the real monster because his monster only wanted to be loved. He only wanted to be treated like a man. He only wanted to be treated with the dignity of man, right? And Frankenstein himself was so evil that he wouldn't give him that honor. And so it's like, what else was he supposed to do but be the monster that essentially Dr. Frankenstein made him to be? You know what I mean? He kind of put him in a rock and a hard place. Lamau. What's your opinion on Patriarch John the Faster's 19th canon? I don't think I have seen his 19th canon. Whoa, the chat just like caught up really fast, bro. The kissy face emoji. That just caught up like really fast. I'll have to see John the Faster's 19th canon. Pine Sap with a smile. Thanks, buddy. We see the edits just got here, lol. I don't know about that big guy. Can you make more Kyle response videos? He's tricking young men into joining the Orthodox. Yeah, I'll definitely make some more. Do you like Leon Bloy? I don't really know enough about him, to be honest. I need to study more about him. Catechism of the Catholic Church's heat. Definitely, bro. What book should I read to better understand how to actually be traditional Catholic without being against Pope Francis and the other things? Well, what I would say is, again, War Against the Papacy is a really good book, especially for like our modern era. I would also say that The Pope, the Council, and the Mass by Dr. James Lakutis is a really good book. And like anyone who worked for Catholics United in Faith are really good models for like being a traditional Catholic, right? Also, Father John Hardin. I mean, Father John Hardin, bro. I have his spiritual autobiography that I got from a Catholic bookstore. But Father John Hardin is definitely a saint for our times. I mean, he was fully traditional, fully Catholic, and he loved Vatican II, loved the Pope, and defended him. And so I think they're really good models. And I would also say Gift of Infallibility by Bishop Gasser is a really good book too. It helps you understand the theology behind like papal infallibility and being obedient to the apostolic see and stuff like that. So it's really huge. Catholic History X is going to be your biography. Yeah, that's true, dude. Do you think we meet at AFPAC? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'll hang out with any of you guys at AFPAC. Is AFPAC just a yay, hooray, Groypers, we're so back? No, dude, it's more than that. It's more than that. You're not even ready, bro. You're not even ready. AFPAC is so much more than that. Find mercy and hallow prayer app every day. Let's go. Squat up with that. Don't know. I'll be tempted to meet Pine Sap and Wagner. Let's go. Looking forward to going to AFPAC, bro. Went to the Fatima procession today. Hey, Censored Anon. That's awesome, dude. Absolute W, man. I'm glad to hear it. That's great. I would love to. I'd love to meet you at AFPAC, bro. And that's great. You went on the Fatima procession today. Chad, thanks. Internet Eastern Orthodoxy ended last week. Yeah, that's pretty true. That was definitely a major L for them. And now they're just trying to like just spam post fiducia supplicants misrepresentations, and it's like it's not even, you're just coping, you're just coping at that point. Also, you guys see this patch? That's an acne patch. My skin isn't coming off. I got some of those like those spot patches where if you got a little acne or whatever, you just put them on and it like kind of absorbs everything. You take it off later. They're awesome. I love them. Let's see. Good take, Sap. It's weird how people today try to lump communio theologians in with the Nouvelle Theologie. I think the history is hazy with a lot of the critics. I think so too. I don't think it's accurate in the slightest. Leon Bloy is great on the Jews, wow, and also gave a great Catholic perspective of post-Napoleonic France. He's also why I think there's probably something to Our Lady of La Salette. Oh, sick! I gotta definitely check that out. I gotta check out his writings. Definitely send me some books, Unionist. What do you think about the Theology of the Body Institute YouTube channel? I think they do a pretty good job for the most part, I would say. I haven't seen really anything particularly egregious that they've done. Maybe I don't know how they talk about sexual ethics a bunch, but hopefully they talk about them in the right way. If they talk about them the right way, then they're good. Pine Sap, let's pray a rosary together. Sounds good, brother. We'll definitely do that. He's a love speecher. Let's go. Read the rules of St. Benedict, and the rule of St. Francis reads on how to be obedient and submit to the magisterium. Hey, let's go. Those are some great recommendations, man. I love it. Submit to Rome. So true, dude. Yeah, it's sexy. Wait, what's sexy? Dude, what is sexy right now? Come on, man. Dang, I'm so late it's over. It's okay, replay gang, baby. That's what it's all about. Jay Dyer was on Tim Pool. What a combo. Yeah, man. You see the essences, energies, distinction. You Catholics can't even know about, okay? Catholics, your epistemology is all off, okay? It's entirely circular. You say that scripture confirms the Pope, but the Pope confirms scripture. Circular epistemology, okay? Roman Republic or Roman Empire? Roman Empire, definitely. Republics are gay. Pine Sap, would you do more documentary style vids in the future? I could definitely try. I'm just not really great at video editing, to be honest. Theology of the Body has helped my wife and I plan out our marriage in a major way. Yeah, Theology of the Body is a fantastic theology. I mean, all of St. John Paul II's books on that topic, and even like William E. May and stuff like that, are really, really, really good. How do you deal with immigration while it's protecting your nation, but also loving and respecting the dignity of the immigrants and their situation? That is a fantastic question, my brother. I would say the biggest way that you do that is you should limit immigration and you should try to not have mass migration. But when you come into contact with migrants or what have you, I think deporting them in a manner that respects their human dignity, like not throwing them in prisons or whatever, but trying to deport them in an ethical way, maybe giving them comfortable seating or what have you, plenty of water and, food and that sort of thing, still treating them with the dignity that any human being should be treated in while they are, going through that process to bring them back to the country that they're native from, I think is huge. I think that's the main way that you deal with the immigration issue in a ethical way, not the people who are like, we're just going to gun them down or something like that. That's horrible. Let's all pray to convert Alex Jones. Yeah, that's real. Renewed life. Yo, just got here. You're hopefully not ending soon. I am, unfortunately, brother. I gotta go get food. Um, you'll help me edit Unionist? Okay, that sounds good, man. Is LeBron James your sunshine? I don't know what that means, but sure, man. That sounds good. Thomism or Franciscan or Molinism? Any preference? I mean, I like the Franciscan order a lot, but I haven't really studied those theological schools as much as I should. Idleness is the enemy of the soul, and therefore your brother not to be employed in manual labor at certain times, at others in devout reading. Saint Benedict for bro struggling with sin. That's real. Thanks, bro. Pine Sap, I agree so much. St. John Paul II in his writings, the beauty of marital relations is so amazing. It really helped my wife and I get through some tough times. That's awesome. Just stop being involved in wars and you don't have the obligation to take in refugees. That also scam the system. Very true, man. Pine Step, have you ever watched Fonday Radio? I have. They actually, the dude who runs it does some really good episodes. I love the episode we eat Michael Jones. I also love the episode where we talking about Catholic neocons, or like kind of the crossover with the sort of traditional movement and like the whole MAGA thing. Like that was a really good episode. I really like it. Top 5 fathers. Ooh, man, that's tough. Um, Top 5 fathers. Sorry, I swallowed something there. I think I just swallowed some snot. That was not good. I hate when that happens. Sometimes you get like nasal drip. That just happened. Um, Man, I'd say maybe like Saint John Chrysostom, Saint Basil the Great, Saint Gregory the Great, Saint Macarius, and then Saint Mark the Ascetic. I think would be 5 I could name off the top of my head. But I'm sure that list might change if I had like a list of all the fathers. And I'm like, oh yeah, also that father, also that father. It's classic Zoomer. Just don't have sex. That's so true, man. Saint Benedict, pray for us. What EMJ books have you read? Mostly Jewish Revolutionary Spirit. But that's been the main one, mostly Jewish revolutionary spirit. And then I read also the Vatican and the Jews. I need to read more of Logos Rising because I've heard Logos Rising is pretty impressive, to be honest. I've heard it's pretty good. Um, so those are the main books I've read. But Jewish revolutionary spirit completely changed my view. Completely changed my view on human history. I like did not look at human history the same way after I read that book. Also, a Goy's Guide to World History is a really good video you should watch if you're maybe not so inclined to want to read a larger book, especially now that he's got 3 volumes for Jewish revolutionary spirit. It's just expanded so much. I don't know if in the second edition he talks about Louis Charles Levin, but he really should, because Louis Charles Levin, first Jewish congressman, the first thing he tries to do is ban and attack Catholicism in the United States. Wow, crazy, huh? I think that the Catholic dating question goes deeper. It's a lot of avoiding the occasion of sin, no hand holding, no kissing, etc. That's very true. Is it possible to retake the Holy Land in the future? I'm serious and I would like to know. I don't know, man. I mean, I think the current situation, just with how everything is, would be very difficult, but I don't know, maybe. I mean, maybe after the heat of the fog of this war, there could be some, Catholics who could attempt to retake it, but it's hard for me to know. I mean, I think realistically, not, at least not right now, but who knows? I mean, world history definitely changes in profound ways we would have never expected. Mindset, do you know anything about NFP? My wife and I have been practicing it for about 2 years now. I've seen some rad trads talk bad about it and say it's a sin. We just don't have the money for kids. It's not a mortal sin so long as you're doing it with your spiritual father, or your spiritual father is rather guiding you in the practice of NFP. It's not a mortal sin by any means, though. It was even done before it was kind of talked about. Even under Leo the 13th, it was talked about, when a wife and a husband would have those relations at like the low time of fertility or whatever, it was not a mortal sin. So it's not a mortal sin or anything like that. Just make sure your spiritual father is guiding you and your wife in the proper practice of that. Let's go. Good list. Nice. Pine Sap, have you read any St. John the Cross? I sure have. When I was in Georgia, I bought actually the huge volume of his collected works. And I really love St. John the Cross, especially on not looking sort of for consolation and prayer, but just being constant with prayer, even when we don't feel like we want to pray, and even when we feel like it's hard or we're kind of in that dark night of the soul. That's meant a lot to me. So I need to get more into him, but the bit I've read has been really good, especially in dealing with like spiritual dryness and just being constant with our prayer. Oh, and I have read some of Libido Dominandi. That's pretty good. Have you read The Imitation of Christ? Great book. Keep on the work. Good work, bro. God bless. I've read most of Imitation of Christ. I need to finish it, though. That's the biggest thing. I need to finish it, but yes, I have read most of it. It is fantastic. It is probably one of the best spiritual books ever written. Read Logos Rising right now. Oh, yeah, let me just pull up the PDF and read you guys for 5 hours. Pinesap, are you Yang or Flute Hugen? I don't know what those words mean. That sounds like some kind of martial arts, man. Is that like some like gooning thing? Are you asking if like I'm an edger or I'm a gooner? I mean, I'm a gooner, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm not. I swear. I promise I'm not. I promise I'm not. Wanting his new book on the H word. Yeah, I've heard that one's really, really good, actually. Convert the Holy Land. Very true. Yeah. Thoughts on the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, both gay, both way into decadence and debauchery and stuff like that. Savonarola was really right about the Renaissance just being decadent and gross. You know what I mean? Logos Project is a really good podcast defending Vatican II. Great theology from Pope Benedict XVI. Very true. They're a great podcast. Too real, says Hefley Groiper. Too real, brother. FP is not per se illicit, but it can be used with a contraceptive mindset. It's bad. Yes, very true. If I become Pope, I'm retaking the Holy Land. Just you wait. St. Louis the Ninth, pray for us. Real. Did you, can you see my question or are you ignoring it? Oh, I didn't see your question, Soy Enjoyer. Try sending it again. I don't think I ignored it. Excuse me, sorry. Pine Sap, I've noticed the stronghold of Catholicism. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Pine Sap, I've noticed that the stronghold of Catholicism has moved to the coast, to the southern states. Thoughts? I've kind of heard that too a little bit. I think that's kind of pretty accurate. Apparently, the South's doing really good with Catholicism, and I think a lot of people are converting. So it's very beautiful to see. Gunnar W. The question plays Fluta Ugen for life. It's so true, dude. Bro, we're so back. Fine, Goon. BTW, most EMJ books are on Internet Archive for those who are poor. True. Goonsap Part 2. Real, dude. DM'd you Salvation Through the Jews by Bloy. Oh, sick. I definitely want to check that out. Well, this is awesome. Never forget you can delete the post, but not the memory. True. Lots of Catholics in Ohio and Texas. Real. Catholic Confederacy when? Dude, I'm hoping out for it. I'm holding out for it, I should say. Savonarola was based in Dominican, and he was not disloyal to Pope, which is why he has not been canon. But he was disloyal to Pope, which is why he's not been canonized. But here's the thing, though. Actually, Alexander VI, I watched a video. Apparently, he regretted the excommunication and said that he shouldn't have been excommunicated. I think essentially retroactively undid his excommunication. So, his disobedience to Pope was not on a principle of faith. It was just out of the debauchery that he saw in Florence. So I think that's why he could still be canonized. Because you also have to understand that there were saints that sometimes got into it with popes, like Saint Cyprian, and that didn't make them not saints or whatever, because they never really dissented on like a manner of faith, right? What icons are behind you? Alabama Catholic. Saint Paul, right there. Our sorry, I'm trying to position my finger right. Our Lady, our Lord, right there. A crucifix of our Lord. Then over there, the Holy Family. Our Lady holding our Lord after he'd been crucified. Christ the King. Saint Francis of Assisi. Our Lady Perpetual Help, and then Christ redeeming Adam and Eve from not Gehenna, but limbo. Honest thoughts on PT. I don't know what PT is, to be honest. Are bedroom marriages bad for marriage, or is that nonsense? I think you need to make the root of your marriage about loving each other and not about gooning or doing anything gross. Because I think in that way it is BS. At the root should be love and getting each other to heaven, not trying to just get your rocks off or whatever. That's disgusting. So I think it's kind of nonsense. We love the American South real. Pope Sap. Oh, thank you, buddy. What's your favorite argument for the existence of God? Probably the first mover. Because it's like nothing can act upon itself. There had to be there had to be something that acted upon our universe to create everything that we know. And so I think that argument is so airtight and strong. But I'd love to do an entire video on it. I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. But yeah, I think the first mover argument is really, really good. Sort of the first principle of everything being created, and thus God acting upon our universe so that everything was brought into existence. Hippolytus descended from the Pope, but only reconciled when they were forced to do manual labor together by the Romans. Great story. Saint Hippolytus, that's a beautiful story, dude. The only anti-Pope canonized. Yes, sir, John. My parish does a weekly novena to Our Lady of Perpetual Help. It's very nice. That's awesome, dude. Should we return to making 12-year-old Jesuits giving sermons to heathen? I think so, dude. I think that'd be awesome. Well, guys, I would love to keep talking. Unfortunately, the place does close at 10, and it is at 9:06 right now, so I think I'm going to have to get off here. But it has been so awesome talking to all of you guys and just sharing my story and stuff like that with you guys. Really mattered a lot to me, and I'm just glad that we got to share this time together. Be expecting more streams this week. I might even be doing a collab with Redeem Zoomer again, so that'll be really awesome, and you'll get more content this week. So God bless you guys. I will see you all.